All right, it is 6:30. Good evening. My name is John Matola. I'm a vice chair of the Board of Finance and the chair of the Audit Subcommittee. This is the Town of Fairfield Board of Finance Audit Subcommittee meeting for September 9th. I think all the members are here. Lori Charlton and Mary LeClaire is here. And I just called the meeting to order. The second item on the agenda is to hear and discuss a review of recent audits performed by town internal auditor Connie Saxel. I think we have 6 of them.
Yes.
So we'll go in order of how they were presented to us. Yeah, and what page is the first one for the backup? Do you have it there that I could just say till I pull it
I
up?
would think it's on page 1. It's the one for the sewer permit revenues.
Okay. Do that one first and we'll just go in order. Go ahead, Connie.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. As John said, I will be discussing 6 audit reports that have been stamped final tonight. These reports have been discussed at our monthly internal audit meetings with Upper Town Administration and the applicable audited department head. And of course, the primary goal of these audits are to identify and disclose weaknesses within the internal accounting control structure, identify and disclose areas in need of improvement for efficiency and effectiveness, and report all findings to management and provide recommendations. And I know there's a lot of content in these reports. I'll focus on the most important findings and recommendations. Of course, please feel free to ask questions that you may have regarding any of the reports. The first one is audit sewer permit revenue collections and sewer use tax bills generated from sewer permits. I conducted an audit of the sewer department, sewer permit revenue collections, and the tax bills generated from new sewer permit connections and reconnections. And basically, I wanted to ensure that the proper permits were issued to customers, customers paid the proper fees, that to ensure that inflow and infiltration fees were properly billed to applicants, to ensure that the tax collector had been notified of new sewer connections so they're properly billed. Audit finding 1. It is estimated that it's been at least 8 years since the sewer department fees have been reevaluated. It is recommended that the sewer department, in conjunction with the WPCA Commission, review the current fees charged by permit type to determine whether the actual fee charged is reasonable and defrays the costs of administration, inspection, other expenses associated with processing the permit issued. And the fee schedule should be updated if necessary based upon this review. And chime in, raise your hand if you have any questions on anything. Feel free to interrupt me at any time.
Would it be okay if you just went through management's or talked about management's response? Because this report was dated in April.
Yes.
And I know they were doing a fee study, so
Not there yet.
that's completed, I think.
Well, I have not had an opportunity to follow up on their
Okay.
responses. I'm not sure what the status is of their fee schedule review. I'm not sure if Tom knows.
They did, they have completed it, yes.
And have they decided to update their fees, do you know?
Yeah, they're increasing,
Okay.
my understanding.
So the INI and all, this is just for permit fees. This isn't for the normal usage.
Correct, that's my understanding, yes.
Yeah, good, okay.
And I
And,
did leave some hard copies of backup right there.
oh, thank you.
So that's got to be voted on by the
The WPCA.
WPCA, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And would that have been voted on at the last meeting when they approved the sewer rates for this year?
I believe it was, but I'm not certain.
Okay.
The sewer department also collects revenue for street right-of-way opening permits, also known as road opening fees. And average revenue collected over the last 3 years was $32,000. This revenue is recorded in Munis and reflected as Public Works Department revenue under General Fund 010 and not Sewer Department WPCA revenue under Fund 130. And inquiries with the Assistant Director of Public Works and other management regarding the reasoning for this revealed that it was unknown why. So I had recommended that the revenue collected and processed by the sewer department be more appropriately reflected as revenue within their budget, Fund 130, rather than the general fund 010.
So on this one, can I just?
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is street right-of-way operating permits, also known as road opening fees.
Correct.
So who does is this work to do this done by DPW or is it done by WPCA employees?
I believe WPCA Sewer Department collects the permits, the application, they collect the money. They do send an inspector out from Sewer Department to inspect this. And I think a portion of it is also conducted by Public Works Department, who may have a part in closing the road or opening the road, that sort of thing, more of the asphalt aspect of the permit. So there is a sharing. However, if it's all sewer department labor, it should be, in my opinion, more appropriately reflected as sewer department revenue. I mean, it's not a huge sum of
Right.
revenue, it's 32,000.
Are they gonna do that?
It was something that I noted. I'm
As far
sorry.
as you know, is that what they intend to do now?
Well, this is something that will have to come up in the upcoming budget.
Okay.
So we'll have to reflect it at that time. If we want to more appropriately put it in Fund 130, we'll do it at that time during the
Okay.
budget process.
So I guess, going forward, it would just make sense to,
It's a revenue.
yeah, maybe understand if, if this is, it's a small amount of money, but my guess is that maybe in the past it was DPW employees doing the work, and so this was meant as a reimbursement.
Yes,
So, not a reimbursement, but.
to defray the costs.
Right, okay,
Mhm.
all right.
Hey, how are you?
Okay, so that would, so if this change is made, it'll be made in the upcoming budget.
Right, correct, yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Audit finding 3. I had randomly selected 36 building permits for new construction from July through December 24. The permits were cross-referenced to corresponding sewer department permits issued to ensure that the proper inflow and infiltration fees were charged and collected by the customers. I had also checked, there's a GIS sewer map to determine if a lateral line is needed, and if it is needed, then the person needs to connect and pay a permit fee. And during my audit sample, 13 building permits issued for new construction were identified as requiring payment to the town for I&I fees. And out of those 13, 5 of the 13 subject to audit examination did not pay the required fee to the town. The total underpayment was $27,619. Further, one customer was billed twice. That overpayment was $5,577. The net amount of the error was $22,042 underpayment to the town. I had recommended that the sewer department cross-reference all addresses of sewer permit applications to this GIS map, just as I had done, to determine whether or not a lateral connection exists and if it's needed. If it is needed, a permit is necessary and the customer should pay the proper fee. I had the clerk in the sewer department bill the customers and we received payment, full payment. And actually, we had to reimburse the person who had paid twice. And so the net revenue to the town was $22,042 discovered during the audit.
So when you say sewer department, this is someone that sits where?
Yes, they're upstairs right next to the building department.
Okay.
And the customers come in, they get a permit for a building, a new construction, they also are required.
Is this a WPCA employee though, or is it a?
It is I believe, yes, she's WPCA, sewer, I think it's interchangeable, sewer WPCA.
Okay.
So, yes. So anyway, so when I had discovered that the underpayment had occurred, she properly billed the customer. They gladly came in and paid what they owed to the town.
And they put in a process to review this for completeness going forward?
Yes, they have. Also, I instructed them to always enter everything into Municity, which is our permitting software, to review it, to make sure that the proper permits are made. Also, Building Department has partnered with the Sewer Department to ensure that, they go hand in hand to make sure they're reminded to get these permits and to get the payments. Also, in the past, they had more of a manual system, kind of a little tickler file too, and things like that. And we're trying to, I encouraged them not to do paperwork manually, to do everything in the computer. Audit finding 4, it was noted that I&I fees charged and paid by customers are not processed or included in Municity, the town's online permitting system. Customer invoices are manually typed in Word, and files are saved on a shared drive. I had recommended that everything be processed through the town permitting system, Municity, so documentation of fees charged and paid by customers are formally tracked in the Municity permitting system by permit number. This will also create a complete and all-inclusive record of permits and fees associated with each address, which is easily accessible by all the permitting departments in the town, and also by outside parties when they come for inquiries.
Can I ask a question? So when I recall within the past couple of years, you had done an audit of the building permits when they first put that system in, and I think it came out pretty relatively clean, as I remember.
Yes.
So the sewer department should have been using that system but wasn't using it? They were doing it manually?
Yes.
Who else is supposed to be using that same permitting system?
We have our engineering department uses it, building department, conservation, and sewer.
Okay, so
I think the fire marshal as well.
engineering, conservation, sewer,
Fire marshal
fire marshal,
and building.
marshal, and building. And building was the primary.
Yeah, they were number one, the first ones who had started using it.
They started, I mean, and that's the bulk of the revenue.
Yes, the bulk of the revenue does go through building and.
So you looked at sewer. Have you looked at these other departments to see whether they are?
Yes, actually conservation.
I know conservation's in here.
I have done building, I did sewer, just did conservation. Fire marshal falls, very small permits, but they fall kind of hand in hand with building department.
Okay.
They work in tandem. So, and I think our health department now is soon to be on board with Municity as well.
Isn't it like even easier for them just to use Municity anyway? I mean,
Yes, yes.
I don't
And
understand
when
why
I
they-
had mentioned it to them, they said, why didn't we think of this? So, yeah, sometimes you just don't realize you have these things available to you and you just don't use them for some
Yeah, when-
reason. They didn't even realize.
Yeah, when the
they
system
said,
was
"You're
rolled
right."
out, they didn't
Yeah.
sort of do it comprehensively,
Exactly.
don't they?
Yeah.
All right, well,
Okay. So audit finding 5, the sewer department, disconnection fees associated with building demolition permits. Each demolition permit should have a $100 sewer disconnection permit fee associated with it. I looked at 23 demolition permits, and 8 of them were identified as requiring a sewer disconnection permit. But the customer had not been required to take out the necessary permit or pay the fee. Of course, we're not talking huge sum of money here, $100 apiece. Total underpayment was $800, or 35% of the total dollar amount of the fees tested. My recommendation was all building demolition permits must pay the required sewer disconnection permit fee of $100. care to be taken to ensure that all proper permits are obtained and paid by customers to the town by the sewer department. I'll move on to the next.
Can I just, did you have to, did you do any policy updates as a result of this audit?
No, there were no policy updates. However, I didn't kind of instruct them how to, enter things into Municity, how to check for items. They were actually pretty well-versed in the use of Municity. I believe there was some turnover in the department, and one person was on medical leave, and so some things had slipped through the cracks, unfortunately. So now they're on top of it, and they know what's necessary needs to be done with the department.
Is it written down in case there's more
That's
turnover?
one of my audit findings and recommendations in the report. I said it was noted that standard operating procedures do not exist. And I find this quite often in many town departments. I have recommended that they start documenting standard operating procedures over the entire sewer permitting process and other significant daily departmental duties in case someone is out on medical leave or whatever the reason being, if that position is vacant, someone else can sit in that position and fulfill the job duties efficiently and effectively. And that was audit recommendation 7.
In terms of policies, that needs to get looped into the overall policies and procedures that I'm working on.
Okay. Yeah, I just, and I realize you don't have time to formally do the follow-ups on all of these, but given that this report was several months ago, it would be helpful to understand whether they've gotten that done at this point. I mean, appreciate, Tom, you'd want to review it, but I think we recommend sometimes these things get written down and then it just never happens.
Right.
So maybe you could just check on that.
Yes.
Okay.
I did meet with the department head. We discussed it. She did tell me she was proactive and definitely would be working on this. She does have an estimated completion date that she provided me with, but I will follow up and verify that this has been done. Okay.
Yeah, well, I just thank you for doing the audit. I'll be interested to see when we go through the WPCA financial plan with Michelle, what the
Yes.
outcome was with these fees and,
She was great to work with. Really, the department was very hands-on. I was well received, and I was happy to report that they felt the audit recommendations were definitely worthwhile. I'll move on to the next one, which was the audit of the Conservation Department. Is that your number 2?
It's
your
on
list? Okay.
page,
Yes, Audit Conservation
20.
Department revenue and performance bond releases. I examined revenue collected from customer payments for inland wetland certificates of wetlands conformance, performance bonds. Bond releases were also examined. And the recommendations made within this report primarily focus on departmental deposit procedures outlined in finance policy. Audit finding 1. There was one occasion where a $1,300 customer check was collected and deposited, but it was not recorded in Municity, the permitting software system. This finding reveals that the department's not printing a daily financial report on a daily basis and reconciling it to their receipts. So I had recommended that the Conservation Department print out the daily report from Municity each business day for cash and checks received and trace it to the applications and permits and attach it to the transmittal submitted to finance. And this is important reconciliation function to make sure that all the receipts are reconciled to the deposits and that are sent to finance. And they agreed to do this.
So Connie, had you not done this audit, when would this have been identified? Is this something that would have popped up in a bank reconciliation? Or Tom, is this reconciliation part of the year-end close?
This should be part of the year-end bank records, the year-end close.
Right, well, in this situation, however, the money was deposited, it went to finance, but they never put it in the system and applied it towards a customer's account in the system. And what the departments are required to do is every day fill out a end-of-day report that says everything they collected. We want to see it in detail, and it should agree to what went to the bank for a bank deposit. This was not done in this case, and I had instructed them to do that, and
And sorry to, but municity, right,
yeah, there is no
it's-
reconciliation from municity to
to Munis?
to Munis. correct.
Okay,
Right.
so
It's
that's
just a separate software package.
right, but we do that, I know we do that reconciliation for property taxes, which is
Right.
obviously a much bigger
Correct.
number, right?
Yes.
But we're using these offline systems, and building permit revenue is not insignificant. I mean, it's,
Right.
you know, permit revenue is in the millions of dollars, right?
Right. No, you're correct.
So shouldn't that be, I don't understand, why wouldn't that be part of our standard quarterly close and year-end close?
No, that's a good point, Maria.
It's a part of the reconciliation. The problem is, the issue is that we are just now trying to establish really a formal close. And if we do a close once a quarter, and it's something we should be doing monthly. So, but this should fall out when you do the bank rec, because the funds are going into the general fund. The money is going to the general fund.
Well, but would it though? Because the bank rec, you're reconciling the bank account to the munis revenue, but you're not reconciling that to, this is sort of like a sub-ledger, this municipal.
Yeah, but it's in the cash account, right? So it's in it should come out as a reconciling item when you do the bank rec.
But you weren't reconciling to municity, I think it would only pop out in a reconciliation if it was missing from either the bank or munis, but it was in both of those, it's just that it wasn't getting into.
It's actually, yeah, it's a standalone software package. It's more for
So in other words,
departmental-
what could go, if you think of the what could go wrong,
Right.
let's say you had revenue that was collected and applied to customers' accounts, or something was being applied to customers' accounts in municity, but that didn't match to munis.
Right.
That's
Then
where
would
you could
know.
have an issue,
Right, and
over
that's-
or under.
Basically, when I did this audit, that's what I had done. I had gotten all the permits that went into municity and traced it to a cash deposit to make sure that we received the money. And in one case, sure enough, that's how I discovered this $1,300 check was not in municity, but it was in munis.
So what period did you cover?
Let's see, I have to look at the report. It was July 2024 through February 2025.
Okay, so for year end, Tom, we would just have to update the
Yes.
list, okay. 'Cause I know someone had raised, the resident had raised a question about the reconciliations we do in the main tax collector. And I had talked to a number of people, including Ms. Bossy and
Yes.
Dave Kay, and they kind of took me through the whole reconciliation process. But so we do it on the main one, but
Right.
these others, we should be doing the same thing. So I'm glad it was only $1,300, but,
Right.
okay.
Let's see, let's move on. Audit finding number 2. I noted that one customer revealed that a check was received by the department as payment from the customer for a public hearing fee, $500, in August, but it was held aside and not deposited until October 23rd, 2 months later. Now, town policy requires that all customer cash and checks received by each department in excess of $250 be deposited the following business day. I have recommended that they follow town policy and deposit funds immediately the following business day. And this ensures compliance to town policy, but it also ensures that the revenue collections are not subject to loss or theft. And it also allows the town to maximize their investment potential and provide better cash flow management.
Did you get an explanation as to why they sat on the check for 2
Well,
months?
they held the check because they weren't sure if the application was going to go to a hearing and if it was going to get approved. And I said, just cash, it doesn't matter. I said, cash the check, don't hold on to it. Because what happens if you leave employment, you at 6, nobody knows the check's sitting in someone's drawer somewhere. So I told them, regardless of whatever your reasoning was, to deposit the funds the following business day.
And do all our checks currently have to be physically deposited at the bank?
Currently, yes, that's what we're doing. We're having each department
So it's
fill out
not
a
like
bank
with our
deposit
personal
slip.
bank account where you can
Correct,
scan a
right.
check? We don't have any capacity like that at
I
all?
think Tom Harris is looking into having that scanning.
Well, we looked at, we still are kind of looking at it, it's been put aside for a while, having a remote vault in the tax department. So basically, you would have access to our funds the same day. The problem is that the vault would only satisfy collections for one account, and we have several bank accounts. So, which would require, several vaults or several pickups if we were to use a service. So that's something we're looking at with the tax department. No decision yet.
And I also distributed the town deposit transmittal policies and procedures to the department for their review and understanding as well. So they would be familiar with what the town policy is. Okay, let's move on to, I'll go on to audit finding, recommendation and finding number 4. It was noted that a customer receipt slip was voided without the department head authorizing signature, and I had told them that the department head needs to sign off on all voided customer receipt slips as an internal control to make sure that a cash wasn't received and then voided and cash taken. So the department head is required to sign off on any receipt that is voided. This will provide documented evidence that the receipts are voided for valid reasons have been reviewed and approved by supervisor.
So what's an example of when we would void a customer receipt?
Customer changed their mind, they paid, and then they said, you know what, I really don't want that permit after all. I would like my money back. So they would say, okay, well, here's your check back, but I have to void this receipt. So in that situation, they write void on the receipt. It's 3-part, they're using a 3-part customer receipts book. They write void on it, customer gets their check or money back, and then it just originally went into a file. However, I said, really, if you're voiding something, you need to have your department head review it and sign off on it to make sure. Because an internal audit control would be a warning sign would be if I saw 20, 30 voids,
Right.
then my eyebrows would raise. But in this case, it was just one void. But I did say to them, you should have your department head sign off on it. And it's also for their own protection too. It shows that the department has reviewed it and for a valid reason. Okay. No errors or discrepancies in dollar amounts of bonds released were noted during audit test work. We could pop the champagne cork for that one. However, it was noted during the course of the audit that backup supporting documentation submitted to finance for the release of performance bonds via pink voucher payment comprises simply a copy of a letter to the customer designating release of funds. No other supporting documentation showing an original payment supporting the release is present. I had recommended that a copy of the customer receipt showing the original payment be attached to the pink voucher in conjunction with the copy of the letter sent to the customer to support the validity of the payment for release. And this will ensure that a valid release is made to customers who had made an original performance bond payment. I just wanted to see more supporting backup documentation in that case.
I just want to say, I think this is pretty important. I mean, if we're putting a $180,000 check or whatever on a pink voucher, and I'm the budget director or whoever, and I'm signing off, why would I sign off on that?
You wouldn't know if that
I
person originally
shouldn't
made
sign
the
off
payment.
unless I have evidence that we're actually reimbursing somebody for money that was originally collected.
Yeah, I agree.
And
that's
I, otherwise, what basis do you have to approve it?
Correct.
So.
No, I
We
agree.
don't do that anymore. We no longer.
Okay,
But just to be clear, you
Yes.
did validate that these were legitimate
yes,
payments.
I did,
It's
I
just-
did. I went,
So that, and
had to
just
go to the
I mean,
basement, into the archives.
yeah. So
And
my,
find the original payments.
yeah, my concern is not so much that, it's the idea that, and this has been also a recurring theme, that when, whoever it is, whether it's a
Right.
department head, a budget director, a CFO, whoever is approving things, on what basis are you signing off?
Right.
You've got to make sure that you're
And-
doing the right things before you approve a payment.
Correct. And more backup, more support for expenditure of funds is the better, in my eyes. It just, this way, things don't slip through the cracks. Audit finding 6, which I feel is an important one. An audit review of a list of performance bonds held by the Conservation Department revealed that there are 160 bonds that are over 10 years old on the list, totaling $471,341.74. 53 of those bonds ranged between 25 and 42 years old in the amount of $247,280.74. I had recommended that the Conservation Department conduct a review of individual customer files listed on this performance bond schedule that are between 25 and 42 years old to determine whether a valid permit exists or whether the permit has expired and is no longer valid, determine whether the customer has or has not satisfied the bond requirements or has defaulted, and determine whether or not the bond should be released to the customer. Performance bonds over 25 years old where customers have not satisfied the requirements as dictated by the Conservation Department. Those that have expired or where customers cannot be located should be escheated to the town. This will not only reduce the volume and dollar amount of outstanding bonds that are listed on the performance bond schedule, but will also reduce the general ledger liability upon their account upon their release.
So we've got 2.2 million of bonds in total,
Yes,
according to this table.
yes.
And these are reflected as a liability in the financial statements?
Yes,
Uh,
because they're performance bonds.
Right, because they're
that
performance bonds,
right.
but half of them are more than 5 years old, and that money may,
may never get returned.
Yeah,
funded.
my recollection is they were going to follow up with Phil, and there was a question about whether the funds should go to the state. I think there was a belief that the funds could not be left with the town. If they had to be remitted, the funds would go to the state. And I think they were going to follow up with Phil on that.
Yes, I sent the town attorney an email regarding this. He's researching whether or not what the best option is to handle these old performance bonds on this list. So I did discuss this with Mr. Gerber, and his eyebrows were raised at the time.
We thought the money was going to come into the.
He was hoping that it was going to come to the town.
what's an example of a performance bond that might legitimately sit out for 10 years? I mean, is
Well,
there,
it usually involves something to do with wetlands. Maybe they haven't satisfied the required wetlands guidelines. I mean, previous it was Tom Stanky. Do you remember Tom? He was very,
Yeah.
very diligent and strict. So sometimes these people did not get their bonds back because they just did not meet the requirements. Sometimes it was whether or not a customer wanted to put a stone wall next to the wetlands or, that sort of thing. So,
I mean, is it plausible that this old stuff is actually a liability at this point? Or
I'm gonna say they've been sitting out there for 42 years. I would say no, but.
Well,
that's-
not-
I would think it's a liability, though. The question is to whom it's, because I think, again, based on what I heard, it's going to go
You might
to,
have to go to the state.
correct.
But, I mean, 42 years, I would agree, but I mean, 5 years, like
Yeah,
a
I would
chunk of
say,
this
that's
is-
why I had said anything
Okay.
over 25, from 25 to 42 years old. I mean, 25 years.
So who's doing the research on this? Because they're not just gonna look at the age, right? They're gonna look at the circumstances on each one of these?
Yes, then
If
I
we have the
spoke to
records?
Mr. Bishop. He thought it was a very good idea. they should be. But he said, I don't know if I will even be able to find these people where they live. They may have passed away. How do I even find these customers? That sort of thing. So that was.
And that
part
would
of
be a
his-
reason to escheat to the state.
Yes, I would say yes. I just wanted to point out some other observations. Conservation did have detailed, well-documented standard operating procedures, which allowed them to easily conduct businesses where in instances where key employees were absent. I had a tear in my eye when I saw the book. I think I even put a picture of it in the report. Because usually when I go to departments, they have nothing documented. And she had such a lovely documented book with tabs, and she was very proud of it. And I told her I would put a nice comment in the report about
No,
it.
that's great. Is that also online somewhere in our, or is it just a physical book?
No, it's a physical book just located in their department, but she has it all in her computer. It's all typed up and saved in her.
Good example, good model for
Yeah,
the other
department
departments.
share, and she was happy when I told her that. The Conservation Department maintains well-organized and complete files, greatly facilitated the process, and they were very knowledgeable in the operations. I think it's important to also commend employees.
Yeah,
Rather than just pointing out, the negatives all the time.
No.
Sure.
They're not negatives, they're opportunities.
Exactly, but sometimes the employee, they feel defeated when they read the report because, these are findings but I also want to point out the positives and good things that employees do as well.
A lot of good things.
Yes, definitely. Should I move on to the next?
So the next one.
The next one is the audit review of policies and procedures governing town revenue collections.
Wait,
and-
I'm sorry, can I just, before you do that,
Yes.
the formal response to this conservation one, and I'm on my iPad here, so I don't know what page this is, but it's this little table
Mhm.
that lists the audit findings and recommendations, and all of them say department head will review.
Yes.
So.
I did speak to him in person as well, and sometimes department heads do put very brief comments there, but he did say, I did speak on all of these audit findings and recommendations in person with him, and then also at the monthly meeting. And also, he said he would be proactive, they would be looking into a lot of these audit recommendations and
So they're not,
working on them.
do you know if they're not implemented yet?
They have been implemented
Yeah.
after my discussions with them.
Okay.
Right, as soon as the finding had occurred, I discussed it with the employee, and they agreed to use Municipal, print out the daily report. Actually, one of the employees said, I didn't even know I was supposed to do that. So, this is a good experience for both parties, the
Yep.
department and myself, So then she learned, this is how I'm supposed to do a daily, end of day, reconciliation and so on. So there are benefits also, positives that happen as I'm doing the audit as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, John, just in time.
Next one.
Audit, review of policies and procedures governing town revenue collections and disbursements, general fund. So this audit was conducted upon the request of the CFO, Mr. Harris, and the purpose of the audit was for each department receiving revenue to identify the departments who collect revenue, those systems in place that they use to document revenue, how they record their daily revenue collections, the policies and procedures in place governing the revenue and collections, the weaknesses in those policies and procedures, and make recommendations. The same was conducted on the disbursement side as well, identifying the policies and procedures, reviewing the manner of requesting, approving, processing, recording disbursements, etc. And as you may have seen from past audit reports, the town has a variety of policies and procedures in place governing revenue collection and cash disbursements. So I'll focus on some recommendations made in the report based on identified weaknesses that are also listed in this report. Revenue collections. I had recommended that the town assign an individual to create, update, distribute, and provide training to employees on all town policies governing customer receipt collections and the importance of maintaining strong internal controls as defined within those policies. Town policies should be regularly communicated to employees and easily accessible in one town shared location for employee review and understanding. They should be consolidated into one concise document. They should be provided to employees, either hard copy or electronic version, and they should be required to sign an acknowledgement form designating receipt and understanding to be maintained on file. Town management should require all departments to document standard operating procedures governing all aspects of customer receipt revenue collections within their department. It's also recommended that the health department utilize Municity, which they're currently not using. It's not up and running 100% yet. IT revealed that they're in the process of incorporating health department into Municity. I also recommended that upper management review the town donation policy and associated donation funds. Individual donations over an established specified dollar amount should be presented to the chief fiscal officer or the board of selectmen for the review and approval prior to acceptance. Written descriptions of these donation funds outlining their intent and purpose should be on hand. And petty cash, town management should review the petty cash funds maintained by town departments for actual monetary need. If the funds are necessary, they should establish a standardized list of acceptable purchases for using these funds. A maximum dollar threshold should be established for individual purposes. And all purchases should be made through, I had recommended, town purchase requisition for pink voucher process, or the pink voucher process. The report includes 5 areas where weaknesses over disbursements.
Before we get,
Sure.
before we get to
Yeah, of course.
disbursements, so the departments that, you have the top 10 revenue generating departments?
Yes.
And I don't, John, I don't know what
I
page
see
this
it,
is.
yeah. It's page 41, I think.
Okay. So, and I don't know if you have this elsewhere, but how many systems govern these 10 departments? And then, are there any other ones out there?
Well, there, as I said, there are a variety. I think I have a schedule in that report also at the end that shows what they're using as well.
Do you?
The systems in place.
This lists some of them.
Yeah, let's see.
But so you mentioned I know Municity, but like, I know the tax, oh wait.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they list some
Yeah,
of them.
There it is, there it is. So
Yeah.
tax collector,
Right, so this is what
UDS,
they use.
okay.
These are all the town departments and all the systems in place that they use.
So I know, we all know Rec Track. Town clerk has its own. Solid Waste has a cash register. Did they ever get, remember they ran out of paper for the
Yes.
cash register and couldn't get it to
An
work?
antiquated cash
Yeah,
register. They use PC scale system. I believe now they're all credit cards, so it's like a swipe.
Got it,
Um,
okay.
There may be a cash register that prints out a receipt for them when they swipe their credit card, but it's no cash anymore at the transfer station.
And for some of these, and I assume these are small dollars, but just out of curiosity, why would HR, what sort of cash does HR collect?
For, at the time, FOIA, Freedom of Information Act requests, when they print out documents, the person has to pay for that
And
document.
so they would like pay the HR department?
Correct. At the time, we had a FOIA person, dedicated FOIA individual in that department who collected money from FOIA requests. If she had to print out a report, you have to charge them per page.
Yeah, it just, I don't know if there's anything to be done about it. It just seems like a lot of disparate.
Yeah, we have a
Yeah,
lot
'cause
of
there's
different
there's
systems
people in every
place.
department now that this is their job to do
Yes.
part of their job to do
And
this?
even for me to go into the department, and then I
Yeah,
have to.
that's why I'm just wondering.
To learn the system.
I'm
how do
not,
they-
I have no idea
Yeah.
whether it's possible to have more of a
Some-
centralized point.
Yeah,
of
some of these are
contact.
kind of unique though, because
Yeah.
Parks and Recs,
Totally.
yeah, they're very, yeah.
Parks and Rec is a big one though,
Yeah.
totally
Yeah.
appreciate
It's
Parks
a
and
big
Rec,
part.
tax collector, like the
Right.
the permitting system, I get that. Where you see all these other ones and it's a cash receipt book here or there or whatever, I just wonder whether, you
We could
know,
look at some of
there's a
those,
better
but,
way
yeah,
to
we could look at some of
optimize
those.
that. Okay, anyway, sorry, you were
No,
going on
that's
to
okay.
disbursements.
Yeah,
But
please
just
ask
with your
questions.
recommendation that all this stuff should be documented, and who's gonna do all this? Is this part of your
That's my-
project?
That's part of my project, yes. That's due in November, you said.
Okay.
Oh, there's a deadline. Love it. On the disbursement side, I noted weaknesses, and I had some recommendations for the disbursement side. Human resources and payroll. Identify and document employee roles, responsibilities, standard operating procedures, and policies governing Paycom for both human resources and finance and payroll to ensure that the proper internal controls are in place. This is, I believe this is currently in process. At the time when I did this audit, it was in process. I'll have to follow up on that. Petty cash funds, review the actual need again for town departments.
Can I just-
Making disbursements. I'm
Can I
sorry.
just come in, John,
I just
we wanted to get, I mean, we have had, since we migrated to Paycom, there were ongoing problems.
Yep.
There had been problems, I mean, actually through the summer. And I think the concern was, we would have an issue, it would get fixed, and it would create another issue. We wrote a memo to the CEO a month and a half ago. I think we really got their attention. We've been having daily calls internally, and now Paycom is participating in those calls. And we are seeing real progress. I mean, the list of issues that we had 2 months ago was pretty long. It's down to a couple of issues now. You know, they've even assigned a sort of a strategic representative, they say. But we've gotten their attention, they're devoting resources, and I think we're getting close to getting it.
Are these issues that are impacting people's paychecks? Are they reporting issues? Or
They were issues that have impacted paychecks. I think those kind of issues have been resolved. I think all of the issues related to the fiscal '25 financial reporting is done. We still have some issues related to pension payments, but I think we're in pretty good shape right now.
Okay. And I know there was something else with, I don't know, was it the payroll accruals or something?
Well, I mean, there've been all kind of issues. We had an issue trying to do the PTO at the end of the year.
Yeah.
But again, I think HR had a part-time person come in to help with that. Some of this is internal stuff that we've got to do, but I think we're at a point where, we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, so.
You got something there, Mr. Walsh? Go ahead.
Yeah, so that's great, it's coming to the end, you've only got a couple more issues left. So police and fire are on, right?
No, they're not. I think.
Wait a minute.
But I think, and again, I'm not going to speak, I think the goal is to get all of the issues resolved and then address police and fire.
And when is that gonna be done?
That's a broader issue than me. I think, it's an HR issue. We've got to work with the unions, but I think that the goal is to do it as quickly as possible. I mean, I think it doesn't make sense to have different groups on different systems. The goal is to try and get everybody on one system.
That wasn't what was sold to us, though, when we were buying Paycom, and why we were switching, not to have. No one ever mentioned that police and fire weren't gonna be on there. I mean, it's a substantial amount of our
I don't-
employees. It's probably more than half of our employees, correct?
It's a big, it's a large portion of the payroll cost. And again, I can speak for the finance piece of the decision-making process. We should have, and I think the goal is to have everyone on the same system.
Yeah,
I can't give you-
understood it was gonna be done in stages too. I thought, because they were always doing their own thing with payroll, even with Munis.
All
Like,
the overtime
they did their own
Yeah,
thing
but-
separately, and then they fed it over and whatever, and the idea was to make it, but their payroll, as I understand it, is, there's just it's much more complex.
It is more
with
complex,
Shift
yeah,
differentials and all the
differentials, yeah.
things, and so I think it makes sense to get the kinks out of the
Yeah.
easier side of it and make sure all that's.
Yeah, I mean, I think to try and put them on Paycom now before you resolve the issues, you're just creating more
Yeah,
issues.
for
We got to
sure.
get it fixed, and then we got to make a decision about getting people migrated.
Tom, explain to me how the unions are involved with our town payroll
Well,
system.
again, I don't deal with the unions directly, but I think it's a matter of collaborating and getting everyone on board. I mean, they may say, we don't want to do it, but I think you work through a process to get to the decision that you need to make.
I think as long as they're paid in a timely fashion, that's really the only issue. Their overtime's figured out and all that.
That seems
It's
to have
not
been-
that there'll be
seems to a
grievances.
problem. That seems to have been a problem. I don't know why it's taken this long. To be quite honest with you, I've done it with 2 different corporations, gone through it, no problem whatsoever.
I mean, I don't disagree, but
Hourly, all sorts of people.
there's a process.
Go ahead.
Hello, Christine Patel, First Selectman. How are you? Each union contract has different, I don't know, when you work with your companies, if they're union contracts and how many union contracts.
One of them had 2 union contracts.
So each union
Yeah.
contract is a little bit different.
Mhm.
So how it feeds into pay comp
Mhm.
is a little bit different. And as Tom said, you create one problem and something on the back end creates a problem. The fact that this was going in between fiscal years, so we're dealing with accruals as well as a change in health insurance, a lot of moving parts there. Police and fire uses PAS. Right now, before, I would not recommend making the switch, pushing police and fire right now until all the Paycom issues are worked out for this building. Have been talking to Paycom about building an interface to make the transfer of information between PAS and Paycom clearer, because the police, to my understanding, still, learning with time and attendance, that feeds into how they're scheduling and use their overtime. So I hear you, but I would just get this all up and running before we push it on police and fire for.
If, let me ask you this question. If it's not broken in police and fire, would it be a decision, just let them keep doing what they're doing because it's working? Or have we not gotten there yet?
Well, we're not pushing police and fire at this particular moment until we
I
get
understand
up and
that, yeah.
running with Paycom. It creates, I think, and challenges for finance and how things go into the general ledger and for paying everybody from different.
Anytime you've got
Payroll
2 systems,
systems.
it's just more to do.
I just know based on where I work that police payroll and fire payroll, and you guys know this, is very different from just the person who comes and works in this building. It can be complicated. There's overtime
They were
issues,
already
shift
doing their
differential
own-
issues.
they-
Yeah, they do it.
They were already doing their own thing, and again, it was feeding in. So now you're talking about getting an interface that will feed into Paycom
Well, I think-
in a more of an automated fashion.
Based on some of the challenges that we've run into with Paycom going, the communication between Munis and Paycom, how information was going from Paycom into the GL, like those are the type of problems that we ran into that have since been,
For the most part, I mean.
been addressed,
Yeah.
but I don't think that we're there yet before we start making the move.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
And it's really just out of concern about making sure that everybody's getting paid correctly, obviously, and making sure that police and fire continue to be able to operate using the system, their information management system.
Okay, are you as convinced, as chief executive of this town, that this system is going to work for everyone? Paycom.
I'm not convinced that it's going to work for police and fire at this particular moment in time.
Okay, because that was never sold to us. This was, we were getting a payroll system for the entire town, and all the reasons we had to do it.
At this particular moment in time, I'm not sold. I don't want to make you promises about.
I would agree with you.
About police and fire right now, based on the experience that we've had to date with Paycom.
Okay.
They had, over the last 2 months, they have been responsive. We've gotten together a team, as Mr. Harris shared, gotten IT involved, more involved in the, the day-to-day project management of it. We're having somebody come on site. But until we get all of this worked out and get a team in place for police and fire, I don't want to make any promises saying it's going to be done by the end of the year, it's going to be done by February. Let us get through this phase first. Obviously, I think the intent is to have one system for every employee. So the data is centralized, and we don't have employees working, especially the finance department, and HR, trying to manage a multitude of systems.
Yeah, they actually are sending some of their folks on site next week just to do more training. So, I mean, they are committed to trying to get it fixed, because, I mean, they realize the level of our concern.
You think it's a training issue? That their system completely works, but it's a training
It's
issue?
not, I think that it's a unique organization that sometimes there's a special programming for our unique needs,
Right.
which is why IT is more heavily involved.
Yeah, and I would say, once we work out the kinks, just from a distance, seeing it happen, I was always a little nervous. I mean, I think one of the lessons is the appropriate people have to be on the project team. We did not have finance involved to an appropriate degree. Even like basic things like the GL mapping, was not, this shouldn't have been, it was led by HR, and I'm not trying to criticize HR, but I'm just saying, when you do an implementation like this that touches so many things, you have to have all the right user groups involved to help define the requirements and what they are. And police and fire, when they come in, I might do them one at a time, because they're both different.
Right.
And it needs to be very clear, they've always done their own thing. They've got their own process. They use their information in a certain way. And their representatives have to be at the table, along with finance, along with payroll and everyone else. So that part, I think, was,
Yeah, there are a lot of.
it seemed like there was inexperience on the project team on our side.
Yeah, there was there's a list of things that looking back, we should have done that we
Right.
did. The basic things, you do parallel process. There's a whole bunch of things, but we're trying to say, we didn't do those things. Let's look at how we go forward and fix it in next steps.
Was it a mistake going with Paycom? And are you considering going with a better payroll vendor who can handle it better?
I don't know if it was a mistake. I can only look at where we are now. In retrospect, I don't know that would have been my choice, but that's a decision was made, and I think, again, we just gotta.
Because it concerns me as a Board of Finance member, when I've had one employee, one ex-employee, both tell me that First Selectman Gerber told them within the last 5 months he was thinking about pulling the whole project and going in a different direction.
Well, I would say this, if, within some reasonable period of time, if we still have problems, I would make a recommendation that we do something different. I mean, we cannot, this is not sustainable.
And I know at the Board of Finance, and Lori, correct me if I'm wrong, we've talked about this because Ms. Simpson presented saying we won't get to like police and fire, not even think about it until September of '26. And we all had problems with that. And we aired them that night, why we thought that was a problem. So what is a reasonable time? Because we don't really get updated on this. So what's a reasonable time? To me, I think we're at a reasonable time. I mean, I just, as a person, I've negotiated and seen one payroll company come in.
It's been about a year.
A year? Just
So I would say this, if we look at, if we still have, if the issues, the couple issues that we have left, couple of 3 issues, if those aren't resolved within the next month, then I think we gotta, I'm not saying we're at a point where we think about going to a different provider, but I think we really need to kind of reassess where we are.
I mean, I would just say from what I saw, because I saw one of the presentations, their product, I thought, was more impressive than like an ADP or something, you know, and the way it integrated the time and attendance and the onboarding, so it looks like it has the functionality. The issue was that they didn't seem to provide us with a project team that had municipal experience, that knew Munis, and we didn't pull together a comprehensive project team that had all the right people at the table.
Well,
So
we
we
can
can, we
push-
can.
yeah, we can-
But I guess, and the other thing is, aside from parallel testing, you know, there's a right time to make a cutoff, and it's, you know, January 1 would be a good date because of W-2s, or maybe it's July 1, but it shouldn't be October or November. I mean, that's kind of a mess. So, I mean, thinking about those things going forward, I think is important. July 1 is, you know, might be tricky because you're inputting all the new union contracts, and that's just a lot of stuff already.
Seasonal employees too, at
The
July
seasonal
1
employees-
ended up being.
Yeah, and so the W-2s, you know, that's an issue. So like, setting that out, rather than, you know, I think there was this desire to just get it in, and there were expectations, you know, I think they probably overpromised. It's just my observation from a distance. But I think setting that date, we should really consider what that's going to mean in terms of financial reporting, employee statements and all that stuff. So anyway, but that being said, back to the audit, which is the topic here.
Where are we?
It is having the policies, having this stuff written down
That's off
is
track.
incredibly important because,
Now, I let Mr. Walsh ask a question, got us off track.
Yeah.
That's all.
all right, anyway.
Let's move on. Where are we, Connie?
I took the bait. I'm sorry. It was my fault. It was my fault. It was my fault.
Go ahead.
Okay, so there were also recommendations in this report regarding cash disbursements. I had, the first one was the payroll and finance, identifying, documenting employee roles, responsibilities, et cetera, just to ensure that controls are in place. Also, petty cash funds, create a standardized list of acceptable uses for making disbursements from these funds. The donation policy, same thing. Establish a standardized list of acceptable uses for making disbursements with donated funds. Wire transfers and ACH transfers in finance. Policies and procedures should be written, and roles and responsibilities of finance employees should be established and documented. And that actually is in the process. I had recommended that the controller, who is responsible for approving and initiating all outgoing wire requests, be the point person responsible. The chief fiscal officer should approve all wire transfers over 10,000. Was my recommendation.
Thank you. There's a lot of things in here. Can I maybe ask one thing?
course.
Is there, because there's various things buried in these reports, and the reports are all really well done, so thank you for that. But just, is there an inventory of all these policies and procedures that need to be written?
Well, I have.
Or just make a spreadsheet and
Yeah,
like pull
I
them
can
out
do
of these
that.
reports so we have a list? Because I know we talked about getting Mr. Centifanti's help for,
Yeah. Actually, I
to look
think
at
they
policies
are-
and procedures, and the scope of that project was a little unclear to me. So having an inventory of what policies and procedures are missing.
Right.
And I would put payroll at the top of the list. Like, for example, what does the fire department do in payroll? What does the police department do? They've had their own issues when they've had turnover. What does the monthly close entail, or the quarterly close entail, the year-end close entail? These reconciliations between the different systems that are, you know, subsystems that have to reconcile to Munis, all of these things. If we could just maybe
Yeah.
come up with an inventory of those, so that we know as we knock them off, what's done and what remains to be done.
Yeah. Well, let's see. I did list on page 5, policies and procedures over revenue collections. There is a list, but I can put one consolidated list. It's hard to go through these reports. There's so much information in
Right.
them. So, yeah, I'll make you a consolidated.
Yeah, and
list
just so
for
we
that.
could sort of keep track. I remember when we had the DPW audit, we had that long spreadsheet with
Yes.
the recommendations.
How could
and
I
we're trying to
forget?
knock off status. Yeah, okay.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Yes, and I have policies based on a shared drive in finance. And I know Joe Centofanti requested several of them, and I gave them to him. And I think he's in the process of putting something together, a more consolidated policy rather than all these various policies.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, we should have like a book that's
Mhm.
searchable,
Yeah.
you know.
Big Tom. Mr.
That's my
Harris is
job.
working on it. Yeah, he's working on it, actually. He is. Every day.
We get excited about the same things.
Yeah.
All right.
Next.
It's a certain mind to get excited about stuff like that.
Exactly.
Next one is Audit, Community and Economic Development Block Grant Program expenditures. The audit conducted was an examination of CDBG funds from July 1 through April 3rd, July 1, 24 through April 3rd, 2025. And the purpose of that audit was to ensure that the expenditures were supported by proper source documentation, that they were made to the proper payees for the correct amounts, that the expenditures were made for eligible projects, and to determine that low-income fund recipients properly met the HUD income guidelines and HUD required paperwork was submitted. Number one, at the time of the audit, the U.S. Department of Housing Development Office had provided me with a figure. There was $219,287.38 in uncommitted block grant funds available, and specifically not assigned to a specific program. I had recommended that the Office of Community and Economic Development commit to use the balance of these funds on eligible programs within the community. I spoke to Mr. Barnhart. He says he likes to keep a balance in the account just in case a project comes up. Therefore, the funds are available to him.
Doesn't he have to use the funds by a date certain or at some point?
There is no expiration date. I did speak to that.
He did a pretty good, I don't know if you read his response, but it's pretty
Yeah, I think
comprehensive.
he wanted to have flexibility,
Yeah.
you know, so I think that's.
I mean, we're not, is it fair to say we're not in violation of any?
No, you're not.
Okay.
Right, I just wanted to
And we do have
point out that these
our
funds are
audit,
there.
when we do the single audit,
Mhm.
which is separate from the financial statement audit, I know that they do this, so I hear you, but I guess the key thing is that we're not in violation.
No,
of
you're
any
not in violation.
He should have some discretion in terms of.
Okay.
Right. But my point was just to put it out there
Yep.
so you knew it was there, just in case a community type of program or came up, you know that you have some funds there available if you choose to use them. There is also a handyman program that the department runs. They do not require the homeowner to submit documented proof of income eligibility status. To participate in this program, participant income verification is simply a verbal confirmation over the phone between the Office of Community and Economic Development and the participant. I had recommended that the department ensure that all persons who wish to receive handyman services complete an income verification sheet. And the income status should be verified with their most recent tax return and W-2 and or 1099 forms.
But HUD doesn't require that?
I don't know if
I think he said no, because we did kind of push him to do that. And he said it wasn't required.
I
I'm
would like
originally
to
certain.
see that. I mean, if you're
it wasn't.
giving someone these funds based on income eligibility, there should be some verification of their income eligibility.
Generally, they're a minor amount, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Might be just a question for Joe. I mean, I appreciate the comment. I'm just not sure we want to build in that if it's not required under the program, and this is a couple $100 per recipient, this is
Yeah,
federal
we
money.
did kind of press him, he just, so, for
Yeah.
the time being, we.
I mean,
He said the reason why it wasn't done was that the recipient usually is elderly and it's difficult for them to come in to provide this information. So, Okay, however, I have to note it in the report just in case, God forbid, down the road something happens. Why didn't Saxel say anything? You
I
know?
would just double check
That
with
sort of
Joe
thing.
that, because I mean, when he does his single audit,
Right.
that's what it is. It's an audit of
Control.
grant compliance. And
Right.
so I'm not sure if that's this type, this seems to me like it would be too low of a dollar amount to come into the scope of
Right.
what he looks at, but it's worth a question just to make sure we know we're not doing anything.
Again, handyman program, one of the stipulations for receiving services is that the maximum amount of work that a recipient can receive is 8 hours per year. However, I know that 2 individuals exceeded the 8-hour maximum. I have recommended that they track the dates and hours worked for each homeowner, ensure that the work provided does not exceed the 8-hour maximum. Another handyman finding, bid number 2020-6R had expired in November 30th, 2024. The current contractor was still used. I had recommended that purchasing go out to bid for this particular program and find a rebid for this handyman program. And they did. They complied. Okay, any other questions on that? Okay, all right. Number 5, pink voucher payments processed in compliance to town policy. The town pink voucher policy specifically, and the purpose of this audit was to ensure that the vouchers processed for payment by accounts payable as submitted by town departments have proper supporting documentation, they're evidenced by proper supervisory review and approval signatures, and that they complied with the guidelines of the pink voucher policy dated August 31, 2022. At the time of audit, I noted that a percentage of 59% of pink vouchers, I reviewed 100 invoices, 59% of those pink vouchers did not comply with the list of acceptable uses outlined in the pink voucher policy. I had recommended that the pink voucher policy dated August 31, 2022 be reviewed by management. I had recommended that management, 1, either eliminate the pink voucher system in entirety and require departments to make all requests for payments of goods and services via purchase requisition, purchase order, and munis. And this would allow all purchases also to be reviewed by the purchasing department, who is the town purchasing authority. And then exceptions for special circumstances where purchase orders are not feasible should be documented in the policy and should only be used in those unique types of situations. Or, my other recommendation was you can update the pink voucher policy and expand the list of allowable types of expenditures that can be made using it and distribute it to town employees for their review and understanding. And also, yes.
So, just to quick jump in on this, when we were redoing the purchasing policy, one thing that we spent a lot of time on was waivers and things that we wanted to reduce the number of exceptions because
Right.
there was an inordinate amount of waivers that had been issued historically. And that, sort of what you say here, it indicates a problem. If you've got the need for that many waivers, there's either nobody's complying or there's something wrong with the policy and the policy has to be reevaluated. So when I think about pink vouchers, to me, it should be something that it doesn't have to go through purchasing because it's not something that would require a bid, for one thing. I mean, anything that would require a bid under our policy should never go on a pink voucher, correct?
I agree. That's correct.
Okay, and then we've got, other stuff here like T&E.
Right.
Are those being pulled into Paycom?
No.
No,
They're not
We're
going.
looking at Adam is looking at a system to process those.
Okay.
And that would be integrated with Paycom, what we use as a payroll provider.
Okay, so T&E and employee reimbursements and, because it just seems to me that the list that's here of the acceptable uses And this is the existing policy we have now?
That was,
Well, that is-
well, it's
this
been
policy no
updated
longer-
since this report.
Okay.
We have a new policy
Yes.
since
Yes,
August 2022.
that would be
is
in
no
my
longer
next,
effect.
well, yeah, I can speak on that as well.
Because some of this stuff, I mean, I think we want to be pragmatic too. Do we really want, to go through a purchase requisition and all of that stuff for,
A wall calendar.
yeah, I
Well,
mean,
basically, you don't, what you do for a wall calendar is what you do for a rec. You're gonna do basically the same thing. You've got the paperwork, you got the documentation. So it's really not a lot different.
it's not more work? Because I thought the idea.
It's probably less work because people are physically walking around with the document. If you're doing before we even did this, I would see a rec for $16.03. So people did it for the small items. So again, you're probably saving a little bit of time doing a rec versus the pink voucher.
You are, okay. Because I guess my question is, what's the value of, this is something like, you said this was like 15% of our invoices or something?
Yes.
So it's a fairly substantial volume to put through purchasing if it's for small stuff that doesn't have to be bid. I don't know what value.
But if you look at people physically making copies and carrying stuff around, it
Okay.
takes time. Especially if in finance, you got one person who's trying to do all of that.
Gotcha, okay, all
We're
right.
trying to also just streamline it, make it more in compliance with our town purchasing policy, reduce the amount of papers flowing through the finance department. And sometimes these pink vouchers would sit on certain people's desks. There was no tracking or monitoring of them. They also were never reviewed by the director of purchasing because of the nature of the expense. As you said, these should be items that don't require bids, they don't require quotes, that sort of thing. Should be small incidental items. So as Tom had mentioned, we did update our pink voucher policy. And I can go into that more detail if you'd like.
Yeah, I guess part of what I've always struggled with is that we have so many different ways of doing things. Like,
Right.
why we have petty cash today is beyond me. We have a credit card system, like subscriptions. I don't know why they wouldn't go on a credit card instead of a pink voucher. I don't know why we would want to create a purchase requisition for a subscription. Like that to me, that seems like it's going backwards. If we're going to have a credit card program, the whole point of that is you have small recurring purchases that don't require bidding, that sort of thing. It's subject to all the approvals, but it's a way to take some of the administrative cost out. So it sounds like pink vouchers are administratively burdensome. But I guess I'm wondering why some of these things weren't paid, just weren't done by credit cards. That's why we have the credit card program.
Yeah, well, that's a whole nother thing we need to look at because we have things going from credit cards that probably should not be. And again, you can't, it's after the fact when you see it.
Yeah.
So, that's something we're looking at, but.
It might be worth it to look at those things together because, for example, I remember looking at the credit card stuff, we did have subscriptions going through there. So we've got people doing different things, different
Yeah.
ways.
Right.
And that to me seems like, like a good use of a pink voucher, like a legal claim or a settlement, I can see that, maybe. But,
So you-
with all the appropriate backup, I don't know.
But even those, we're gonna go through. It's, once people do the requisitions, it's just not a complicated process. once
Okay.
What you do, yeah.
Right, as Tom said, you still need the
You gotta do
vendor number, you
right.
still need the person's address, the dollar amount. Instead of now putting it on a pink piece of paper, now it's on an electronic format.
Okay,
And it's trying to get everybody to look the same and do the same, so.
that makes sense.
uh,
So whereas the point of this was to try and ease the administrative burden, it's actually it's more of an administrative burden to handle things through these pink vouchers, is what you're
Also get
saying.
more
You want to do everything through
control.
And
requisition.
I think you have a better control system, because again, when you do a pink voucher, the service has been rendered, the product has been received, it's after, everything's after the fact. There's no pre-approval. Maybe there is at some level, but
Right, whereas if it goes through purchase requisition, it's now reviewed by the Director of Purchasing. He can also now see, well, geez, there's 20 departments that are all ordering pencils. You know, maybe we can find a local vendor that can provide us with a bulk, order, that sort of thing, and make sure we're purchasing things more efficiently and effectively. And also he can see whether or not certain things need to be bid, quoted, if it's a correct vendor to use or not the proper vendor to use for those types
yeah,
of
the other thing we did was to change the workflow for the purchasing process. I think I was on. I mean, the way it worked originally, I would see something for approval, and there was documentation that would come later, after I'd approved it. So right now, everything is approved on the front end, and Adam is the first person at the gate to, so we're trying to just tighten it up.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I would just say that it's, part of this will be cultural too. The fact that you're requiring purchase requisitions doesn't mean that someone won't do it after the fact, because we've seen that too.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
So if I'm hearing you correctly, what you are intending to do is am I wrong by saying this, you want to eliminate the pink voucher system? You have.
I mean, there are some,
Some
like,
items still.
employee garnishments,
Okay.
we still do. Those.
so there's a new list.
Yes, so I want to tell you, we had a follow-up. Town administration has reviewed the former pink voucher policy of 2022, and they revised it. Specifically, Finance Department has revised it to place greater restrictions on the types of purchases that can be paid using this method, which also includes strengthening the review and approval process. And this went into effect August 4th of 2025. Specifically, the types of payments that can be submitted to finance using the pink voucher are now restricted to departmental petty cash reimbursements. Those are very few, though, small number. The year-end closing of invoices upon the notification of the controller at year-end, only because if we open up a new year-end, we can't process those invoices in Munis up to a certain period of time, so they all have to be processed manually through a pink voucher. And again, what we did was we revised the pink voucher form, so in these instances, the Director of Purchasing will be reviewing them also and approving them on his end, so he can see what's flowing through on these pink vouchers, whereas before he never saw what went on the pink voucher. And payroll deductions, as Tom had mentioned, wage garnishments, child support. Okay, all others, payments that were originally under the former pink voucher system now are on purchase requisition, which follows town purchasing policy. We also placed a lovely training tutorial video on the town website for employees to view so they could learn how to enter a purchase requisition.
So this has
To
been
facilitate.
communicated to all the
Yes,
department heads?
there was a meeting, a memo has been submitted to department heads. And employees have been calling with questions, and we've been assisting them and running down to their department to show them. Once they learn it once, they know it. They've been very, very comfortable with it.
There was a memo that went out, that Adam sent out in August before we implemented this. Connie and Adam have both discussed this at department head meetings recently, so.
And
And we've discussed it with the purchasing Mary's committee.
yeah,
Yes.
and I know we're going to get to this, but we've had pink vouchers approved that, we had close to 60% of them that got approved that were not in compliance with our pre-existing policy.
Right.
Which and the people that had to approve those included like the budget director to make sure there was budget for.
Department head, budget director, controller, CFO.
Okay, so 60% of them went through and were approved by budget director, controller, department head, CFO,
Otherwise,
and
yes.
they were not in compliance.
Correct.
So those individuals, in terms of, and obviously you're the CFO, you know this better than anyone, but does everyone, like the budget director, for example, does he know now when he's supposed to kick back a pink voucher?
Yes.
All right, so that's clear?
Basically, we're kicking back all pink vouchers.
Okay.
It's just the
There
general,
should be
yeah.
few and far and few between, few and far between in the finance department. Hopefully, we don't see very many more pink vouchers flowing.
And so just one more question, I won't belabor this, but some of these things, these are, was there anything on a pink voucher that, in the sample that you looked at, that did not look like a legitimate town expense, or where there wasn't
No,
budget?
they
for
were
it?
all
Okay.
legitimate town expenditures.
So it was really a process and a policy issue here versus?
Yes.
Okay.
And departments, it was easier to put something on a pink voucher, I think. And some departments didn't know how to enter a purchase requisition, so they used the pink voucher, that sort of thing, you know. So now they've all been trained and they're familiar with, hopefully, the purchase requisition process, and going forward, that's what happens.
And I know I said I wouldn't, just one more thing. Since we have now all this stuff going through purchasing, we were told that you guys were evaluating a new contract management system for
Yes.
purchasing. Where does that stand?
It has been implemented, Prue and Adam, and it has been implemented. At least some departments have been trained. Yes or no?
No, we're still kind of, Adam? We
Bring up,
have been
Adam.
using it, we have
Well,
been
it
using
has, we acquired it 2 months ago.
Yeah, and we're still
Um,
being trained on different things, but we
it's-
have been using
It's
it.
been rolled out in segments, I guess, three or four steps to getting it fully implemented. But I thought we were going to begin the department head training
Sorry, I
in
need to unmute him.
July, so I guess we'll, so yes, we do.
Where is he? Sorry.
It's called Bonfire.
Bonfire, yeah.
Okay, here he is.
Adam, are you there? Yeah,
Yes,
can you
yes.
give us a quick overview in terms of Bonfire, the status of the training?
Yes, Bonfire is, at its basic level, it's up and running. We're approaching it in tiers. So the first tier is using their e-bidding platform, and then the idea is once we've got some bids that have, gone through the bidding cycle, then we will move on to the contract management piece. So we have recently wrapped up the training on the bidding platform, and now we are starting training on the contract management piece. Not every single contract we have will be tied to a bid we've done. Some of them will be tied to state contracts or other things, but that's where we're going to start, is with the items we put out to bid, creating basically from cradle to the grave. So there's two functions within, or two modules that are tied together. So.
And Adam, is part of the objective of this system, was it supposed to make it easier to check pricing to bidding documents? Because when we started having this conversation, I think part of it arose from the fact that that historically there've been a lot of discrepancies with things getting paid that, couldn't easily be agreed to bids. The pricing couldn't be agreed to bids, or maybe, we figured out that it was correct, but it was done after the fact and it hadn't really been checked before payments were made. So e-bidding, I think I understand, but what is the contract management system going to do for us when it's implemented? Just briefly.
Yeah, so the simplest, or sort of the most basic answer to that is it's going to really improve how we manage annual renewals with contracts. And I think that's been sort of our biggest issue with having accurate pricing, is renewals will, in the past had been missed, or, we had improperly communicated pricing updates to departments. So every single bid that we award through the bid management program, through the bidding program, will have a dashboard assigned to it that will, alert us when a renewal is up, and It will allow us to update pricing, and it'll make it easier for us to communicate that information to departments. Individual departments will also have users assigned that can access Bonfire. I don't have a firm answer for you because I haven't seen it in person yet, other than their sales pitch, kind of thing. But we do feel very optimistic about how it will improve the process and make the information more reliable and easier to disseminate.
Okay. Look forward to getting an update on that. Thank you.
Let's move on to the last one for the night. It's
Okay, the last audit report is inventory motor vehicle purchases for police and fire departments, fiscal year '25. I conducted a full inventory of motor vehicles purchased by the police and fire departments during fiscal year 2025. This inventory was conducted upon the request of the Chief Fiscal Officer. The purpose of this audit was to ensure that all purchase of motor vehicles, excluding heavy-duty vehicles, made by police and fire departments are supported by town bids as outlined in the guidelines of the town purchasing policy, comply with town charter guidelines, made to proper vendors as awarded by the town purchasing department through town bid or state contract for the correct bid awarded amounts, and supported by proper backup documentation. The inventory identified 25 vehicles in total that were purchased during fiscal year '25. If you refer to page 4 of the report, you will see that 25 vehicles were purchased during fiscal year by department. They're shown in descending order of cost by department. Emergency management's vehicle is shown with the highest cost of the 3 departments listed on this page. Audit finding 1. The most recent town purchasing policy was adopted on November 16, 2023. It is posted on the Town of Fairfield website under the Purchasing Department for both employee and outside party information and understanding. A memo dated January 19, 2024 was also issued by the Director of Purchasing to all department heads, highlighting the important points of the new policy for their knowledge and understanding. The town purchasing policy requires purchase orders for all department purchases other than specific uses outlined in the non-purchase order voucher policy, also known as the pink voucher policy. The town pink voucher policy states that the use of the pink voucher must comply with town purchasing policies and procedures, and therefore cannot be used in situations that require a purchase requisition and purchase order. A purchase order is required prior to the purchase of goods and services, and all individual purchases over $25,000 must follow the formal bid process. 5 police department vehicle purchases noted in this audit were paid for via pink voucher, which is contrary to the rules and parameters governing the types of payments that can be made by town departments using this method. Recommendation 1, all purchases of motor vehicles and vehicle upfits should strictly comply with the requirements specified in the town purchasing policy. Specifically, the request for the purchase of the 5 aforementioned vehicles and upfits should have properly been placed via purchase requisition and munis, not pink voucher, which would have subsequently required the request to follow the multi-level review and approval process, culminating in the final review, a purchase order created, or if necessary, bid by the town purchasing authority.
I got a question
Yes.
before we move on to the next. So absolutely clear violation here, right?
Yes. In my
And
eyes.
so, for the actual pink vouchers, did you actually look at them?
Yes, I have them here if
Who-
you'd like to see them.
Who signed off on those and who approved that?
Get them for you, John. Okay. Voucher number 1 was signed by Mr. Becker. It was the lead interim CFO at that time.
Is pink voucher number one for which vehicle?
Is for vehicle with the VIN number ending 1701. Or,
So just to,
I think it's
the
noted in the
pink, the
report.
pink vouchers, we had 5 vehicles purchased on pink vouchers. Your
Yes.
footnotes here indicate that these were replacements for replacements vehicles.
Yes, they're
That were either
replacements,
totals or whatever.
correct.
Okay. That's not a reason, the fact that they were replacement vehicles has no bearing on whether the policy should have been followed, right? They needed to have gone through the bidding process through purchasing.
Correct, just to make sure we receive the best price
course.
for the awarded proper vendor.
And these were not budgeted, correct?
Correct, there was no budget for
There
these.
was no
However, they were paid out of our town internal service fund.
Yeah. So I think the first,
Just to clarify, in terms, the original vehicles were in a budget at some
I
point.
understand.
Yeah. But
These are
the
replacement
replacements were,
vehicles. I mean, we got a billion questions here, and you started asking them. But why don't you go first, because
I got a lot of
I
questions.
got, like, for example, what policy do we have in place to replace total police department vehicles? It sounds like we don't have any type of, has this ever happened before, Connie, to your knowledge?
I have not seen this happen
Okay.
before in my 34 years of experience, no.
So,
It usually went through the budget process. The fleet was replaced through the budget process.
So would the police department, to your knowledge, if a police vehicle was totaled, they would just deal with it for that fiscal year? How would
Sometimes
they
it
handle
went
it?
through the outside jobs fund or the budget process. Or it went before the boards and a request was.
I don't know if it went
I don't
through
think
the,
we
one
ever
of the
got
things
one.
we
Did we ever get
did,
that?
one of the things we did a few years ago, very intentionally, when we started using this outside jobs fund, was to make sure that that money was in the budget.
Right.
And so we grossed it up, and we had the full amount of the cars that were budgeted in the budget, and then we showed the outside jobs fund money coming in as a revenue source. So it was all there, and it was transparent in the budget, we could see it. So there shouldn't have been, I don't believe there were, I could be wrong, but as far as I know, there were not purchases made from the outside jobs fund that wouldn't have been reflected in the
I
budget.
did look at the outside jobs fund for a period of 5 years or so, and I did not know any vehicles being purchased out of the outside jobs fund, except for, I believe, one last year and these this year.
So to your knowledge, the way they did this is the first time this has ever happened.
Yes.
So we heard about this briefly. The first time I remember hearing about the use of the internal service fund was it came up during the budget process, and I think we were all surprised because we got the analysis of the internal service fund, and we heard at that point that vehicles, replacement vehicles were being run through there on the basis that these were like, they were uninsured
Insurance
claims, right? But we also heard that, and I think that raised a lot of concerns because the internal service fund was never intended for that purpose or had never been used for that purpose, A. If we made a policy decision to use it for that purpose, we should have budgeted money to put in there, and we did not do that. And so the effect of that was that these cars were effectively coming out of the internal service fund balance, which was not supposed to happen. So but I did not know that it was 5 cars. I remember trying to get this information from Ms. Bossi during the budget, and she didn't have the information at the time, but I didn't know it was 5 cars. I have just a quick list here of questions. So I guess, and let me start out with the most obvious one. So we have this list of cars. So the first one, the Suburban.
Yes.
There were a lot of questions about this, including during the budget process. And so the emergency management director was, at that time, driving a fleet car, an older Tahoe. There were questions about what the cost of that was, and I think we were told it was an older vehicle, like they didn't even have the records for all the costs of the upfits and everything.
It was a police car.
Yeah, it was a
Or the
police car.
marina that was not being used.
Yeah, it came from the fleet and it had been assigned. So I'm from your footnote here, it says the Suburban replaces a totaled Ford Explorer, which was assigned from the police department fleet. So I'm a little bit
Yes.
confused. Why was a new car issued to the emergency management director rather than, what was wrong with the Tahoe that was being driven? And what was the justification for purchasing this? I don't know if you know, Ms. Vitale, but what was the justification for purchasing this new vehicle at this cost? And who determined that this was appropriate, I guess?
And point of information, John, I'm gonna be asking questions. You want me to hold my questions?
You,
Yeah.
Or do you want me to sit like Miss?
No, you can stay.
The chairwoman has had me sit at her table before.
You can sit here if you want to, I don't care, whatever you want to do.
Okay, I just don't know what you want to do with that, one, and number two, if I am gonna talk, no one can see me or hear me, because there's nothing above me.
Sit over here.
So, okay, thank you.
All right, so back to my question was, why was a new car issued, and what was the justification for the replacement, and who determined that that was appropriate?
My understanding is that the emergency management director is issued a car as part of the job description. HR decides that in conjunction with the first selectman. The car was purchased. They all kind of went together, and they're somewhat musical cars, it seems like. A car gets totaled. Mr. Gerber wanted to make sure that our police and firefighters had the equipment they needed to do their job.
Right.
I don't know if, in the past, how car replacements were handled, if they just waited until the next budget cycle and they just made do. I think there was a real commitment to our public safety officers to make sure that they have the equipment they need to do their job. And in this instance, it was a car. Mr. Becker, as the emergency management director, was issued a car, had the Tahoe during budget, but that vehicle really was, as Mr. Walsh said, was first purchased to be a police car. And the vehicles, again, learning all this, and I'm not in the police or fire divisions, each car is somewhat specific to function. And the equipment and how it's upfitted, to some extent, depends on function. The animal control officer's car is not going to be upfitted the same way a fire officer's car is. Emergency management director handles a wide breadth of emergencies, police, fire, flooding. My understanding was that this car was chosen both to accommodate a wide variety of functions, have more space for equipment, and look to the future for the services that we want to provide to our our emergency management officers. Also,
Can you
it
just-
is somewhat of a, we have the commands.
Just looking to the future, what does that mean?
Well, we're looking to the future as our town is growing, potentially. We've had more flooding incidents, just more, the universities are getting larger. The potential for a variety of emergencies potentially could be more varied than it has in the past. So I think in terms of what that vehicle needs to be, might need more space, might need more equipment. I was not here during, did not make these decisions, so
Just your understanding.
my understanding right now in terms of emergency management and wanting to have vehicles, regardless, the vehicle that best suits the function of the person driving it and what that person is supposed to be doing, whether responding to a fire, police call, traffic call, or handling an emergency.
That,
And in terms of the upfitting, we've got the command post, major emergency, which serves as a center for our public safety officers during the emergency. This vehicle is sort of a mini command post that can be mobilized throughout our community to address emergencies, which is why it is upfitted differently. Again, my understanding in terms of the difference, I think that the decision to make this was the emergency management director's decision in terms of what equipment needed to be in that vehicle. Similar to police and fire, when they're getting a vehicle, what equipment needs to be in that.
So we don't have a policy on any of this. So, and I want to get back to the emergency management vehicle, but even for police and fire, are you saying that people individually determine what they need in their car, or how is that done?
I think by function, there is a standard of standard equipment that needs to be in every police car. But then for function, there might be additional equipment that needs to be in each car.
And so for the, and I'm sorry, because I wrote down some questions on my phone, I'm not looking at my phone. So the detail of the upfit on, I mean, I could ask the same question about all of them, but I'm going to focus on the emergency management vehicle just because it's substantially higher than the rest of them. Did you look at that? Were you able to independently determine whether that was reasonable? Because one of the things that jumps out, I think somewhere in the report, there was a comparison of other towns.
It's on page 15, top of
Okay.
page 15.
And we have, ours looks much more elaborate. So what is your, I know you weren't here, but did you evaluate whether this was an appropriate purchase?
I
or-
didn't compare what equipment, and I asked to do some comps with other communities. We got the price. I don't know how deep of a dive you did in terms of the upfitting, what equipment was in each car. Didn't go deep in terms of if there were other vehicles in the fleet as well and what the function was. In terms of this vehicle, that's kind of the next phase of where we are in terms of determining what an emergency management vehicle needs. That's not my area of expertise. I think that in speaking with the CFO, we're going to engage our police and fire chiefs to help guide that and make sure that we're really giving them the equipment they need, because very often budget can be a constraint in terms of what are in these vehicles, and looking to subject matter experts, maybe outside of the department, looking at for emergency management, if FEMA has any guidance, or outside organizations who can just help guide that process. But there's not a policy right now of what each car and what the equipment should be and what the cost should be. Right now, it seems that it's handled by the department.
What did $67,000 buy us, though, in terms of what costs so much versus the upfit on the police vehicles is also not cheap. It varies, but $67,000, what kind of equipment are we talking there?
There's lights, modems, sirens, Starlink, compartments to
Stages of.
compartments to store equipment,
Equipment and types of things, yeah.
painting, decals.
one person made that decision.
And labor was a significant cost as well, just for,
Norcom put their car up. Norcom on their Instagram has their car, has every piece of equipment on here. I've talked to various police and fire people from other towns. They can't even believe it. Norcom, when they write about it, talks about it as though this is like a one-of-a-kind car that's never been put together before. And how special this car is. They list every single thing that this car has it on 5 pages. Every single thing. Goes on for pages. This is all the equipment in the back. They have pictures of it all.
So let me just say one thing. There's a lot of stuff on this car, and we don't know, or maybe we do know, that there was, we think, one person who made the decision to add all this to the vehicle. Is that a fair statement? To your, best of your
To my
knowledge?
knowledge, the emergency management director, in his expertise, made the decision of what equipment needed to be in
And just-
an emergency management vehicle that was like a mobile command unit.
So we're clear, and so the public's clear, this was done totally outside the budget process, fair enough,
Yes.
right? As far as you know.
As far
I
as-
think
as-
we all can
as
agree
far
to
as I
that. It violates all the purchasing rules. I mean, that's what Connie concluded. Is that fair, Connie?
This was, yes, this was,
Do you
this
know
was.
the rationale for why this
Why
was
did he
not
do
put
that?
through
Why
the,
did he-
why this
Right.
was not put out to bid or go through the purchasing department? I mean, all 5 vehicles for that matter. But why were, just because they were paid for in the internal service fund, why did that bypass our bidding process? Was there, and I'm not trying to be, I'm saying, was there a rationale for that, a reasonable rationale?
I'm not going to, I don't think that there's.
You're not aware of a reasonable
That there,
rationale?
like a reasonable rationale, I think that we should set the standard that we need to follow our purchasing policy.
Well, wasn't-
And
wasn't-
I think that in this, my understanding is that there was another bid for vehicles, and that bid that had been, they used that as a guide to somewhat move forward with purchasing these vehicles on pink vouchers, which is clearly, as the other policy showed, is not what you're supposed to be
But
using a pink voucher for.
Wasn't the, I don't know if it's reasonable or not reasonable, wasn't the rationale, as you kind of mentioned it a few minutes ago, was that these were police vehicles that were totaled, and we can pay for replacements through the internal service fund, which you can make an argument, I don't know if it's a great argument.
That's not a reason not to bid them.
No, I get it, but there's two rationale behind it. Yeah, how do we pay for it? Through the internal service fund, and you're right, that's not a reason not to bid them out, absolutely.
So we basically had Mr. Becker, who was the CFO, interim CFO at the time, right?
Yes.
And then he becomes the emergency management director, correct?
Sure.
And he makes a decision on his own car,
Well, on the emergency, the car that he would be driving.
the car that he was to be
The town
driving,
car.
shows every single thing in that car, correct?
To my understanding.
Okay,
I don't,
there was no-
and I don't know if, I don't know if he had discussions with other people about what should be in that car in terms of other emergency management experts. As I said, that piece of it, in terms of setting a standard of the equipment that should be in a car and that we want to be in a car, we haven't done that work.
Well, the
But-
police make
but-
make a statement at the very end in Exhibit C of Ms. Saxel's report, saying that it should be noted that it was never purchased, upfitted, or used by our officers or staff. So the police are washing their, because they know nothing about this.
No, this is not a police car. This
Okay.
is not, and I know that it
And the
was,
history of the town is, for the emergency management director, has always, prior to Mr. Becker being put in there by Mr. Gerber, was always either the police chief or the fire chief, who already had cars. They already had their own Suburbans or Tahoes fully fitted out with everything. But a decision was made to let Mr. Becker, a civilian, that's what he is, a civilian, decide to purchase his own car, decide to put his own stuff in it for double the cost of our surrounding communities, including rich communities such as Greenwich and Westport, very wealthy communities. They, to put all that money in, double the cost of what the average is for the other towns that at least Ms. Saxel at least went to. And I do appreciate, Ms. Saxel, your work for at least putting that into perspective, because that question would have probably come up. And he's also the CFO, so he decides everything he wants on this grand car. And then he signs off on it as the CFO, breaking our policies and signing off on his own car, which is also, Ms. Saxel said,
This is
you're
a
not supposed to
town-
be
this
buying
is
your
a
own
ta-
car.
This is a town car. This car is a property of the town, so this equipment that was put in this car,
Yeah.
this is town equipment,
That in every car?
In our emergency management vehicle. This is, you know, Mr.
No, I
Becker,
understand.
if Mr. Becker, that car stays with the town.
No, I'm not saying he gets the car. I'm not
So,
saying, no.
and-
I'm not saying- no,
but you are correct, Mr. Becker was the interim CFO. He signed the pink voucher along with the budget director, the HR
Analyst.
analysts, who basically confirmed that this car,
Which person signed it? What analyst?
multiple people signed the
I don't-
pink voucher
yeah,
to move,
It
to
was
move.
the HR analyst, the assistant HR director, Mr. Ritchie, the
What is it?
budget director, Mr. Peter Ritchie.
What does HR have to do with it?
They handle
They
the
handle risk
property
management.
claims. That's a risk management, was in
Right.
HR.
That was
at
the
that
risk
point.
management.
So they're pretty good.
Well, that's where the front.
In this situation, Tom, you think they're a
No, I
pretty
mean,
good
that-
person?
I'm just-
I'm just answering your question
fact was,
about who signed off on the pink
Okay,
voucher. That those are, that is who
It was,
signed.
the
I
budget
I
director.
think we can all agree that this is a big issue and a problem.
This is, I mean, on multiple levels. I mean, on multiple levels.
This is horrible for the taxpayer.
The purchasing policy was not followed. It
Yeah.
should not have been purchased on a pink voucher. I thank Ms. Axel and Mr. Harris.
Hearing process was-
You know, we basically realized that this needs to be corrected in this role for 2 months, move forward with the pink voucher policy, because these vehicle purchases was one example. There are other things, larger ticket items, that were also purchased by pink voucher that shouldn't have been. So that is a step forward to correcting this. As I said, in terms of equipment that needs to be in all of our emergency management vehicles, police, fire, I think that's the next step to make sure that we have an understanding of what we would want in these vehicles, both for the health and safety of the officers that drive those cars, as well as the service they provide to our taxpayers. That.
But you agree that there's like, you know, I understand we can look at our own situation.
Yeah.
And whether we want to start spending $140,000
And-
or more.
And that is something that we should
And-
really,
or
we
more.
should look at in terms of our vehicle replacement.
But
for police and
best
fire,
practices, when
we
you
should
talk to
budget
other
for it.
communities, when you talk best practices, and you start looking at other communities, especially communities that have all sorts of money to spend, then don't you look at that?
I asked Ms. Thaxel to look at other communities.
Okay.
I asked that, you're right, I asked that question. And concerned about what the difference is, and I think that some of the difference is this emergency management vehicle has modems. It has a Starlink. I don't know if those other cars do.
Yeah, I'm not trying to protect anyone, but as soon as I brought this to her attention, she took it very seriously. I will say that, okay?
And I'm just giving you answers to what the equipment is in this vehicle. I don't know what's in the vehicles, and this is a decision that I agree more people should be involved in terms of what the equipment.
I give it to you that you weren't the first selectman then, but somehow, one employee is allowed to go rogue, bypassing both how we're supposed to purchase vehicles, not putting a requisition in, how we're, signing off on it himself, choosing it himself, and
I
it not being,
absolutely- I
and it not
absolutely
being part of the
agree.
budget.
It was,
I mean, we were talking about this during the budget process. The administration should have put this car in the budget if it wanted it. We could have vetted it at that point in time.
Yeah, I agree. I
we
agree.
all
And
agree.
listen,
And I think that we all, all
I
agree.
think we all agree.
And moving forward, if I'm still the first selectman next budget cycle, I'm going to put things in the budget that our police and fire departments needs and advocate for it. I agree. If you think that we need this, why, put it before the boards and make your argument.
Okay, I think it should be sold, and we should sell it. If some community will buy it and get almost 2 cars out of it. That's what I think.
well,
I
But
think
anyway, I want to know, Ms. Saxel, did you look at whether there was a charter violation? Because I think I find one in 12.7, and I'm going to read it to you. It says expenditures in excess of appropriations forbidden. That is the title of 12.7. It says no town officer, board, commission, authority, committee, or department shall spend any sums for any purpose in excess of the amount appropriated by the town for such purpose unless such expenditure shall be approved and appropriate transfers in the budget made by the Board of Finance. Tell me how that's not a violation of the Charter 12.7.
Yeah, can
The
I,
town charter is clear in its
well,
language.
let me just throw this out. You may be right, I thought of this also. I don't know, and I think we should, at this point, it's done. I don't know if it certainly was not transparent, it violated our policies, no money was budgeted for this purpose. That technical language, the only thing I can think of is that when money is put into the internal service fund, that's an appropriation. If money only gets into the internal service fund from the general fund. And trust me, I'm not trying to defend any of this. I think the question is going to be, yes, you cannot spend money that's not appropriated. The money that was in the internal service fund has been appropriated. The issue is that, and if somebody had wanted to make an argument that when, if we have property damage, if a tree falls on someone's house, or if a tree falls on a town building and we have an uninsured risk and it should be paid for out of the internal service fund to the extent there's a deductible or whatever. And someone could make an argument that, a totaled car is a property claim, So I don't know if there's a charter violation or not. What I do know is that we never talked about this. We never had a policy that we were going to pay for cars out of the internal service fund. Had we known that, I know for me, internal service fund for me, I've been looking at this fund. I know every number of this fund for the past 10 years. We did not put any of these kind of expenses through there, nor did we intend to. That fund is for health insurance, and it was normally for property deductibles on insured, property and casualty claims, and workers' comp. That's what's in that fund.
And we made decisions based on that, and how much money or how much money not to put in there.
Right, that's
That's it,
why the
not
risk
this.
there used to be a line in our budget called risk management, and that budget has been zero for 4 years running now because
Had enough.
we had enough surplus, but that surplus was not intended to be used for vehicles. So whether or not, so you may be right, Jim. I had the same question in my mind. I don't know the answer because I think it's different. If you had spent that money in a department, for example, and you were above the total appropriation, the town budget, I don't know whether this is or not, but it's a question that should be answered.
And why wasn't it put in a department? Because there was no department could handle
was
this
no
expense.
discussion, 'cause
Well,
there was no
also no
discussion about
department that could handle this expense.
Well,
They should have come to the Board of Finance and said, we've got these 5 cars, we're not getting any money, we'd like to order new cars.
I have a feeling, I'm just gonna say, if our police chief had come to us and said, we totaled 5 cars this year. I don't want to put Crown Vics on the road, our old cars on the road to replace them because that's a safety issue for our officers or whatever. I have a hard time believing that our board would have been dismissive of that. I think had we had transparent, open conversation.
You may have said, why are your officers totaling so many cars?
Yes. We could have, but I think the issue is that it didn't come up. So I think we can all agree on that. And as far as the charter violation, we can ask. It is what it is, but I think it's a question I also had. I guess what I'm struggling with is, do you know if there was a rationale for even, I can see a rationale. I cannot defend the lack of disclosure or transparency. But if someone had a rationale for putting this through the internal service fund, the only rationale for not bidding this was you said they looked at least for the police cars, prior purchases, and these were consistent? That was the rationale?
I believe that yes, that was the rationale. There was another bid that had gone out for purchase of police cars, and when it came time that they weren't planning for these cars to be replaced,
Piggyback.
that they piggybacked onto an existing bid again,
Okay.
and that they piggybacked onto that bid. They had already gone out to bid, they kind of knew what the landscape, there were shortages, they wanted to replace the cars quickly because of safety concerns of the officers, because some of the cars are in disrepair, and they piggybacked on the.
That
this
is correct, Connie, right?
And that's, I mean, that's my
I
understanding
just want
of
to,
talking to
I just
Connie
want to
and-
say, and I appreciate that, I just want to say, even if that's true, even if we got the exact same price, part of what happens during, part of what's inherent in the bidding process is that it's public. And had that been bid, the bid would have gone out, it would have been on our website. I don't know if anybody else gets bombarded with the emails from the purchasing department, but I do. When a bid goes out, I see it, there's an automated notice, I'm sure
You
other.
do?
I'm not saying I look at all of them.
So now we know.
No, absolutely. I get notifications for every agenda in this town, every meeting.
Okay.
You don't even get.
It's public.
You gotta sign up.
I mean, I look.
You have to sign up.
I look, but.
Well, you can, but the point is, it's public information.
Right.
And so, that's part of why it's important to follow the process, because it's open and it's transparent, and we're not doing things like we did back in the old days of using old expired bids to justify a current purchase. So if that was the rationale, it's not a good one,
Are
so
we
I think we're.
potentially liable for not following our own procedures and going out to the market for other vendors to be able to bid on the same thing? They did not get the business opportunity. Where was the car purchased from, the base car?
The base car was purchased at Maritime Chevrolet.
That was Mr.
Yeah.
Becker's decision? He didn't go through purchasing, right?
Purchasing.
Placed on pink vouchers, so.
When was this Suburban actually purchased?
November of
October of '24 is the invoice
November
from
24.
Maritime Chevrolet.
A year ago, like a year ago.
Okay, so there's plenty of time to get into the budget process fully. He knew it in October. The upfit, the car cost, everything could have just been right away, could have been put into this past budget year, the fiscal year '26 budget. There's plenty of time to do that.
There was plenty of time to do that. It even could have been an allocation of surplus from fiscal '24.
It could have been.
Yeah.
It could have been. Couldn't it have also, these 5 cars, couldn't we have hit the outside jobs fund? That
Yes.
money was just sitting there.
Yeah,
This
I
pile of money is just sitting there. But instead, we hit our internal service fund and bring that down over this. I mean, it's, first,
We agree.
yeah, I mean,
Can I,
you guys haven't been here when the internal service fund, when we were getting dinged.
Jim, I know.
I know you've read about it. I know you've studied it, Lori.
Yes.
But,
I know.
from having to sit at those meetings
I know.
and say, WTF, what happened to this?
I know.
How are we dealing with this? Why are we getting dinged by credit agencies? When I hear about this stuff, it drives me insane.
No, I know.
And same thing when I hear pink voucher. Pink voucher to me, my brain automatically goes to fraud because of some of the stuff that happened during the toxic situation and how things were being paid for. Every time there's a problem, a pink voucher's involved. I'm glad you guys have changed the procedure. I'm very happy that it's changed the procedure, but more than likely, pink vouchers means trouble.
Agree.
Or expediency. It's, I
Okay.
don't disagree with you.
Maybe that should be a sign in purchasing. Pink vouchers equals trouble, just to remind you.
And can I just, so the rest, so it looks like, let me just, I wrote down some other questions, but, okay. Yeah, I guess we just don't know the answer. It came up to, well, here's just one other question. On this whole, and I don't agree with the internal service fund rationale on its own. I mean, I think it would have been fine to flow the costs through there had we discussed it and had we appropriated budget dollars for that purpose, but we didn't do that. 5 cars being totaled in a year, I don't know if that's a lot. Sounds like a lot to me. Do we have insurance at all on are we completely self-insured on our vehicles?
Yes.
Okay.
At this point. That's changing but at this point, we were
What, yeah,
self-insured on this.
yeah, we had coverage, but these were all below the deductible. The
What's our
deductible is about
deductible?
$100,000 for vehicles.
For a vehicle.
100,000.
So so our insurance is only applies to like heavy vehicles,
Correct.
not
Correct.
like.
Like a
patrol
fire
cars.
truck.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, apply to Mr. Becker's vehicle now. For 60.
And I think the decision for the internal
$50,000.
service fund was that felt it was over accrued and it was just an expedient place to go.
Not a good answer.
So-
I know it's not your answer. I know.
It's like, don't shoot the messenger.
I'm not shooting the messenger.
Yeah,
No.
I mean, that's something coming from the conservation director. It's not something that should be coming out of the mouth of CFO, the interim CFO, who's making these decisions. Knowing
Yeah.
that he should have told the Board of Finance about it.
I think. Okay, so so the status of the car now is just, I'm not sure, yeah, what is the, I don't know if I agree that we should sell it. I think we might lose a lot more than, I mean, I'm sure that the vehicle itself could be used in our fleet. What is the status of the car?
Well, I do think there's still an invoice that hasn't been processed, and work's been done, right?
Yes,
But but that invoice is included in these.
that is
okay.
included in this.
Why isn't it an invoice? How long has Mr. Becker had this car, like driving
Okay,
it?
I don't know. It was purchased in November, I don't know.
Well, I
It was
believe
for the
that he-
upfit, right?
We paid for it in October of '24, and then a few months later, it was upfit. So the car was in service probably around April-ish of 2025.
And how many invoices have not been paid?
There's currently 2 invoices outstanding.
Finance has been sitting on them?
No, they haven't been submitted to finance.
What do you mean?
Connie, you want to explain how you got the invoices?
Yes. So this is, do you want me to continue with the audit report?
I think we
Oh,
go ahead.
Yeah, you can answer the question.
Answer the questions, yeah.
So the 2 invoices, as I noted in our Munis accounting system, that upfits and modifications to this particular vehicle were not shown in our Munis accounting system as being paid. However, I know that the car was being driven and it appeared that all the upfits had been made to the car. So I called several town employees who told me that the vendor used was Norcom CT. No Norcom CT invoices had been paid by our finance department. So I called Norcom CT and inquired as to the status of the invoices. They were very accommodating. They supplied me with 2 invoices for the vehicle, one in the amount of $8,759.82 dated March 10th, 2025, and another invoice in the amount of $58,526.70. And that invoice, he gave me an order. He said he had not, they were still waiting on one part that has to be placed on the vehicle, and I think it was scheduled actually for some time this week to be installed on the vehicle, so he had not submitted a final invoice. In July, he submitted a final invoice to me for that dollar amount of the $58,526.70. The grand total of those 2 invoices, $67,286.52. Remain outstanding at this time.
What are the dates of those invoices again?
March 10th, 2025 for $8,759.82. And
But you said they're not in the system yet, but those are the dates.
correct, it is not in the system. There is a date out. In July 14, 2025 for $58,526.70.
Okay. I'm not gonna talk for Norcom, but I don't know how any vendor sits there with 2 invoices out there.
They want to get paid, I bet.
Yeah, or unless the person who's ordering the car says, I don't want the invoice right away. That's the other thing that can happen. I mean, we're about to close our books within the next couple of weeks. We have invoices
Well,
out here.
we've accrued this, I assume.
Well, no.
I don't know.
I got the
No,
invoices.
we haven't gotten anything.
Tom, if we have invoices that we haven't paid, they have to be accrued, whether they've been paid, so.
Well, we've
I
got to
would hope they've been-
we've got to get some kind of approval for it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we can not approve something that's already been done, which is.
Who approves
Who
that?
approves this now?
Yeah, who approves these two invoices?
That's a question.
Well, here's the thing,
And
this
what
is the issue with approving pink vouchers. Once, by the time somebody has to sign off on them, the jig is up, right? It's.
Right.
So the issue is, and I'm not gonna focusing more broadly for a second. That's why it's so important, and I'm glad you had the communication with department heads, because if somebody's ordering something and goods and services have been delivered to the town and it's a town employee, by the time this rolls through and a pink voucher has to be signed off, we've already gotten the goods and services. So it's the upfront approval is what has to happen. And I think the big piece of that is making sure that everyone understands that we shouldn't be asked to approve things after the fact. And so.
That has been communicated.
Okay, did Norcom just never send out an invoice? Or did they send it to somebody in the town and someone's like sitting on it?
He did say that he had mailed invoices to the town of Fairfield.
These ones.
To who? Did he say who?
They got mailed, I think, to the police
I believe
department.
they
They went to the police department.
And what did the police department do? They're just sitting on them?
I believe they were forwarded to Mr. Becker at that point.
So Mr. Becker's now sitting on them.
Yes. I believe he has these invoices at this time.
So he has been CFO in the past, and he's sitting on invoices knowing that our year-end closing's coming up. That has to be audited. And we still don't have $60-something odd thousand worth of invoices. They're just sitting in his desk or in his email box or something.
He has mentioned, we've had a discussion, and he said that he was going to get the information to me to record it, but,
No reason why the March 10th one didn't get sent to you?
I don't know, I didn't talk about a specific invoice, I just,
And we don't know if they were waiting for all.
yeah, I don't know.
This is not a
He said,
conversation.
he said, I'm aware of it, and I'm going to, look at the funding source, and I'm going to get
I don't know a vendor out there who's sitting on $60-something thousand, letting us drive around a car with all of their stuff and hard work in it, and just like, oh, don't worry, I'll get paid one day, I think.
It needs to be accrued, even if we don't have a physical invoice and we've been told that we
I
have
mean,
this.
this is,
So, so getting back to the, so we dealt with the pink voucher policy, right? A vehicle policy, which is something that we've been talking about for a while now, because I know that we didn't have a vehicle policy, and I know that was something Mr. Gerber had asked you to do an audit on a year ago, and it was just until we got a risk manager in, we weren't able to get a grip on it. So is that going to encompass the process around this and standardization of what gets put in these vehicles and who gets to make the decisions?
No, that's going to be a separate process. Purchasing will work with police and fire to do
Okay.
that.
Because what I got from this too, and maybe if I miss it, the upfits in the vehicles too, we weren't putting those out to bid either, right?
Right.
For all the police
There was one bid that
One bid?
included upfit in it, and those were for police department vehicles, but other than that, we don't have a vendor that has been gone through the town purchasing department that we can use as the awarded vendor for town vehicles.
So the question
That's a
becomes.
really good question.
Can you get a vendor for upfit solely? Because when I read the
Yes.
report, I think we were kind of at the
Yes, and
mercy of the dealerships where we purchased the car, because they were the ones who would acquire the upfit material, and we just have to pay for.
Well, it was a.
Yeah, I think they're going to look at the whole process. Of course, I think there are some dealerships don't do upfits, so I think we're going to let them do the process.
Okay.
And,
And purchasing is in the process of
Part of that.
submitting an upfit bid out,
Yeah.
so they can have approved vendors for town
So it's going to be a
department.
comprehensive.
I think a
just-
Board of Finance member should be part of this conversation when it's going through. If it's not to vote, just to participate in it and to make recommendations on it. I think it'd be, to not have that would be.
Yeah.
we'd
I
be
agree.
No, I
remiss
agree.
not to
I think
have
it'll be, it's something we'll bring to the Board of Finance and certainly before we get into the budget.
And I also want to point out, when it comes to bidding, some of the upfits are, we should not be looking at this on individual vehicles. Because we have vehicles with an upfit cost of $10,000, $10,000, $20,000, which is technically below our bidding requirement. I think we appropriate to have a group of vehicles. So this should be treated as, if we're putting 10 cars on a bid, I don't, regardless of how the upfits get done, we shouldn't be viewing this as like splitting it.
No, all right.
And so it should be regardless of what the
Right,
individual costs are. Because I know that upfit probably includes a lot of small pieces of different pieces of equipment, but it's got to be viewed in its entirety.
Correct.
And we should, I don't know how much variation there is in the actual cost of the equipment, but certainly I would hope for the labor or something when we're looking at a whole bunch of vehicles, maybe, there would be a
There should
differential.
be a standard set of
Yeah,
right.
what equipment's per cause, and then there have to be a special request above that. Because it raises the question about the fire department vehicles that Ms. Staxel also addressed in one of her recommendations, I'm sure you're gonna be going through it, that all of those vehicles were over the bid amount and upgraded without anybody in the town knowing about it, other than the people that asked for the upgrade. Were there approvals for that?
That went through the town purchasing department, and they used one of the bids that was in place at that time. But they piggybacked off that big bid, even though it was for higher grade upgraded models.
But I guess, if I can, I don't know if this is what you meant, but it's fine that the purchasing department goes out for bid, but somebody is giving the purchasing department the specifications. So if someone says, I want fancy rims on a car and this and that, I'm not saying this happened, I'm just saying, they're going to get a set of criteria to put out to bid. And the question is, or the issue becomes standardizing what a car is supposed to look like. And that, to your point, has to be the
that's-
decision
that's what we're
of
trying to do.
the
That's the
subject
purpose of
matter
it.
experts. But it shouldn't be up to some individual
No,
to
no,
say,
that's the
well, my
purpose of it.
car also needs this. and that. Okay, I'm not saying that occurred.
I think generally the police department, I think generally they have been very good in terms of.
Yeah, and I see a bunch of these, like I see patrol division, every one of them is the
They were-
exact same amount,
Right.
64.
So, yeah, I think they've done a good.
No reason to believe anything, and then there's other ones, the detective bureau, that one costs less, special services, that costs less, another detective bureau costs more, like, I don't know why, one detective bureau car is 69,000 and another one is 47,000, there may be a very good reason, but, that, in terms of policy, and that's something that can get updated annually, obviously, but and it has to meet the requirements for its function, but that should be clear on all vehicles. Like, this is the standard of what's needed.
The bid price also affects how much we're paying and whether the department has enough money to pay for it.
Yeah, of course. Well, that was
In
my
the
other.
appropriations. They could sail over the appropriation?
No, they cannot.
Yeah, they're gonna rely on us to move the money. That's what they're gonna rely on.
Yeah, well, that's why this, so it looks to me like it's, just eyeballing this. We budgeted out of the outside jobs fund, 10 cars for 70,000 apiece.
That's the
Right.
guideline that's followed.
No, that's what we budgeted, $700,000. What's in here under the police department, total cost is $1.2 million. Now, I realize there's 4 of these that came out of the internal service fund. But the point is, like, some of these individual ones are more than 70,000, some are less. It seems to me like it probably averages out just by eyeballing it. But I think when we're doing the budget, we should have an understanding of whether $70,000 is the right number. And I didn't, all the radios and things like that were part of what was bonded, I don't know how that fits into here.
Yes, so this inventory does not include radios. I've made a note of that.
Okay.
in the schedule, because the radios vary by department, and sometimes the department buys a cache of radios, and they use them as a vehicle is purchased, and
And that comes out of
sometimes,
where in the budget?
there is I think some of the radios were purchased with ARPA funds.
That I know about. I just didn't know if that was what,
And then
that
I
was
believe there's
the,
also capital outlay, it's very budgetary accounts. I can
Okay.
tell you exactly,
that would be
at
helpful.
the office,
Just so
yes.
that we know. It's just confusing. I'm not suggesting there's anything wrong
But I
with
think
that.
that
I
there's
just don't know.
something, as we're looking at the upfitting of these cars, if there's equipment that's not necessarily, it's budgeted in a different line item. So we just have clarity of,
And the mobile
However
radios, like
it's
if there's like a closet full of these things, like I don't know how they're managed, secured, inventoried, like interchanged when a car is totaled, are they recoverable
Yes,
from
and
one car to put
sometimes
in
they
another?
do recover them from the total
Okay.
car,
Yeah.
reuse it, that sort of thing.
Cecil, did you find out in regards to the radio package? I know you didn't put the number in here. Was this a normal radio package that every squad car would have on it? Or every firefighter would have on it? Or just something more extravagant? Because if that, then it's gonna be more than $140 some odd thousand. It's gonna go up from there. So if you haven't, I would like you to get it, because I'm gonna ask, if you want me to ask at the Board of Finance level and not at this committee level, I will do
I
that.
can give you pricing. Fire department radios range between $8,500 to $10,000 apiece per vehicle. Police department radios, $6,500 apiece. And the emergency management radio with equipment was $28,790.40.
Okay, I'm not a mathematician, so it's 10, 16,005. So with that vehicle, you have to have both radio systems, both the fire and the police in it, because it's the emergency management?
I'm not the
Or can
expert
they
in
use
that
the
area.
same? Okay,
I couldn't tell you, I'm sorry.
all right. But those three, you said 85 to 10,000 on the fire
Yes.
and $6,500 on the police. So if I go to the highest level of that, it's 16,500, and once again, we're at almost $29,000. You know why? Do you have a copy of the package, the radio package?
I do have invoices for those radios, yes.
Okay, can I get a copy of that?
Yes.
So therefore, the car costs now not just 140, it costs almost close to 170, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, then you'd have to add those
the
same
other
costs
one.
on
So
top.
that's-
Exactly,
why
and,
we have to-
and every
yeah.
car needs a radio, so it should be, when we get a car, it should be priced with a radio.
So
and that's
since-
gonna be part of the,
Do we have these radios already, or we don't? We're just
For
buying
police
them and
department,
charging
I
them
believe they
against
already-
the capital
They do have a
appropriation?
cache of radios.
They do have a cache of
Of
radios,
inventory,
okay.
in their inventory.
And they are interchangeable between
They have a
cars?
cache of fire and police radios?
The police, fire, I believe, I believe they purchase their radios on an individual basis by car as needed. Or it's interchanged. If there is a radio available from a totaled vehicle that can be reused, it's interchanged.
Okay, so this was a totaled vehicle, there should have been at least a police radio on it, correct?
I would not know that information.
Okay. Am I mistaken with your report? Does the police have one less vehicle now because of Mr. Becker's car went to, really
Yes.
from police to what, that's the top of the page, the department's called administration.
Correct.
So they have one less vehicle, so, Ms. Vitale, you said at the beginning, you want people to have what they need, and the police have now one less vehicle. Are you gonna now support them in getting that vehicle back?
if they, right now, are one less vehicle, yeah, I'll support them, and I may come to you for an appropriation for that vehicle, because I do
That's fine,
believe.
because
in-
it's a true
Because
cost.
I do, yeah, I will come to you with,
It's a true cost.
that if the police right now, and maybe they might need more than one vehicle if they're hiring new people. I think this is a discussion that we need to have in terms of the emergency management director. Just for full disclosure, Mr. Becker has resigned as the emergency management director, so this is a town car. This is a town car, so if we,
Designed effective when?
yesterday.
So does he no longer have the vehicle then?
He no longer has a vehicle. The vehicle is parked in this parking lot.
So that vehicle can go to the police department if needed?
Chief Dunn is going to be serving as the emergency management director. He's a deputy now.
So now the fire department will have one more than they.
Right now, that car is sitting in that parking lot.
Okay.
And I will have a discussion with our emergency management personnel on how to best use that car at this point. It is a town car.
Okay. But all the previous chiefs could use their car that the
Well,
chief
and I-
had, right? So the chief
Well-
has a car, right?
Well, and this is where a discussion with the police and fire chief, how to best mobilize this emergency management vehicle, whether or not Chief Dunn wants to use it. If, as I said, as ownership of the car, well, whoever is driving the car shifts,
Yep.
if someone's getting this emergency management car, the car that Chief Dunn is driving, if he chooses that he wants to drive this car, could go to somebody else.
But-
Or they could just keep it in the parking lot, and when there's an emergency, they can mobilize it. I don't know, I've not had that discussion. Also, would like to just for the board, we have a new risk manager, Mr. Derry, who's also a assistant emergency management director. Could foresee him growing into the emergency management director role. Right now, separating out, I know that historically, the town has had either the police chief or the fire chief serving as emergency management director. And have discussion if that is the way emergency management is going into the future, that it should be not consolidated in one unit. Maybe there should be 3 separate functions.
Well, right now,
Looking
that's
forward to
what it
Mr.
is, right? Yeah.
Well,
Or that's, when Mr.,
when Mr. Becker was.
No, when Mr. Gerber made the organizational change, right? And I thought he made a compelling argument for it, right? There was, at the time, the emergency management director role that Mr. Becker took on was not equivalent to what, like, Chief McCarthy had been doing before. It was much broader.
Yes.
And that was a decision that was made, and you may or may not agree with that, or you may go in a different direction in terms of whether that's necessary, et cetera. But that was, he had a different job than the former emergency management director. And the idea was that we often had, a lot of incidents, emergencies, whatever, even things that weren't emergencies, but whether it be SantaCon or where we really needed somebody to coordinate
Different town
police, fire, DPW, whatever. And so it was a little bit of a different role.
Yes.
And so you're, in terms of looking at that structure, you're going to evaluate that, and what to do with this vehicle will be part of that. Is that fair?
We just had state emergency management training actually this morning for the town. Multiple town departments involved in this training. Health department, DPW,
Yeah.
First Selectman's office, police, fire, communications, people from all departments. And emergency management, as you said, it's not necessarily just police or fire. It could be flooding, it could be FEMA, it could be Homeland Security, which I think this vehicle addresses all those different areas potentially. And right now, need to have a conversation with all of our subject matter experts on this and how best to utilize this vehicle.
Are you guys taking into account that the radio systems and computer systems from one organization cannot be seen by the other organization? So police and their computers that they use to look up plates, to look up people's records, to whatever, can never be seen by a fireman. They can't. You should look into that.
I will look into
It's one of the reasons why every other town has, the police chief has his car, the fire chief has their car. One of them is the director, but on police matters, if the fire is the emergency management director, will tell the police chief what to do, what the decision is.
You're doing the right thing by looking into what the need is. Some municipalities have a full-time emergency management director.
You have one in Bridgeport.
We have one in Bridgeport. That person oversees not only that function, but also the communication
A
center,
huge center you guys have with
So-
cameras and
Like
stuff.
our
all over.
dispatch center.
dispatch
Yeah.
center. So it is bigger, yeah. So, but you're doing the right thing by looking into it. We don't know yet, and you're gonna have to get buy-in, and you're gonna have to talk to the, as you said, subject matter experts on it, and I think for our purposes right now, you have someone handling the role, which is historically how it's been, and
Who understands if we have an emergency, tonight, we have people that are ready to go.
Mr. Dunn's car now go to chief, or interim chief's car go to
There could be a
the
discussion.
police department?
And I don't have,
You haven't made a decision about the
I need to talk to the chiefs in terms of what their needs are for vehicles right now. This is where we are right now. This town vehicle is.
this audit report, just for everyone's, came out September 5th, so it's pretty much hot off the
Friday.
press, right? That's what it says. It hasn't been sitting around for the last month.
No, I mean, it has not been sitting around. Learned initial, 2 weeks ago, I think Mr. Harris might have brought it to my attention, tried to get up to speed on, as I said, I was not here in this role when some of these decisions were made, to get a better understanding of what happened. Clearly, we're on the same page about, the violations and how it can never happen again. And I very much appreciate the steps that have already been taken to
Let's,
the pink voucher and move it
all
forward.
right. Connie, is there anything else in this audit that you want to just discuss, because it's getting
Pretty
late?
much covered basically
You
everything.
dove into it before you even started talking.
Well, I'd
Which is
be,
fine.
it would be, feel free, if anyone later on comes up with questions, feel free to email me. If you want to see copies of invoices, anything.
I really got a couple questions, because I typed them out today, so we've covered most of the stuff, so I'm just gonna
Yeah,
pick and
and
choose.
before you go there,
Yeah.
can I just ask maybe for Board of Finance, it might be nice to meet the risk manager and understand what his priorities are going to be, because that was obviously we all advocated for that to be a full-time position, and in thinking about that, we all understood that it was about more than insurance renewals, and this vehicle policy I know was top of mind, the certificates of insurance, there's all sorts of things that we talked about, so I'd love to, if he has an opportunity, it will be nice to him, but if he can come to, maybe get on one of our next agendas, I'd appreciate that.
Go ahead, Jim.
Sure, before I forget, because it's not one of my written down questions, does police and fire still report to Mr. Becker as COO?
The police and fire report to me.
To you? Okay, because that had changed under Mr. Gerber, so now
Well,
they're.
I think there was a dotted line to Mr. Gerber, and I've told police and fire that they do not have to go through Mr. Becker to talk to
Great,
him.
thank you very much. So, how did the CFO and budget director vacancies impact the oversight and compliance when we've never been without a CFO? And we had a controller up until July, first week of July, correct? So how, there's a couple times that are in the report, it said that the CFO and budget director basically impact the oversight and compliance. And I don't understand that, since we had a CFO at all times, and Ms. Bossi was here, we didn't have a controller vacancy until after the first week of July.
Right. So one of the weaknesses of the pink voucher policy is if there's a vacancy, it seemed like the review and approval process was bypassed because there was this vacancy. So the appropriate and necessary signatures that were required on the pink voucher were not there.
Okay.
So that's why CFO Harris and myself, we said there's obvious weaknesses with the pink voucher policy, and we revised it, as I had spoken earlier about it, and now everything's purchase requisition. So it goes before the director of purchasing,
Okay.
and he reviews it.
So the CFO did sign it, Mr. Becker signed it
Yes.
as CFO?
So
He
as
had multiple
those
roles.
5 pink vouchers, one was Mr. Becker, one was
As CFO?
as interim CFO.
Yeah.
One was Mr. Becker and Mr. Harris, and
Was he a
I think he
COO?
was a COO at that time.
Okay. Mr. Harris is
Yeah.
CFO.
When I came
Mr. Becker
over.
was COO, Mr.
Yeah.
Harris CFO. One was just Mr. Becker as interim CFO, and one was Mr. Becker interim CFO, and one was Mr. Magnieri, budget director, and Mr. Becker
interim CFO.
So even when we had the budget director, he was signing off on these pink voucher.
He signed off, he did sign off.
Did he know he was
The budget
buying?
director and Mr. signed off on the Suburban.
Do we know whether Mr. McNary thought he was signing off on one of 5 replacement cars or whether he was signing off on this mega
No,
supercar?
he did not know that. If you look at the
Okay.
cover of the pink voucher sheet, it just says Town of Fairfield Police Car. That was totaled, requested by Chief Calamaris and David Becker.
Okay, so that was for a
So
police
he
car,
would not
wasn't
know, Mr.
Okay.
McNary would not have known
Okay.
who the car would have been
Well,
assigned
and
to.
I don't want to pick on, we all, respected Frank, but anyone in that role needs to know that they shouldn't have signed off on that. And if someone's vacant, if there's a vacancy,
Got to be someone.
someone else has to not only sign off, but take
Correct. No.
responsibility for what that other
There
person was
were
supposed to.
other measures
So
in
in other
place
words,
for a vacancy
If
that were
the,
not
if the
taken.
budget director role was vacant for a time, the CFO or whoever needs to not only sign off, but do what the budget director is supposed to do, which is make sure that there's a budget for this thing and that it's in compliance with policy. So
And so as we see, that there were
there are
weaknesses
training,
with
there's
this whole
clearly
system.
training issues
Right.
and whatever.
The system had weaknesses, and that's why we revised it.
Okay, we talked about briefly about the fire vehicles, but I don't think I got an answer to the question. So we purchased fire vehicles at higher prices than the bid award without rebidding. Who approved that and why?
That went through the purchasing department, and at the time, Mr. Tulin used a bid that was in place at the time for expediency, so they could get their cars quickly, and there was a previous bid in place. However, it was for a different make and model, a lower grade make and model. And the purchasing policy does specifically state that if you have a bid and you want to use this bid, it has to be for the same services. You cannot use that particular bid
For an
upgraded
upgraded thing.
model.
Same
Right,
thing
it
as
should
when
have gone
Mr.
out to bid.
McNary signed off, he thought he was signing off on a police vehicle, similar to the one that was there before, not one with all of these
I would
modifications
imagine so.
for
I can't speak for him,
$60,000.
but yes.
All right. When do you think you're going to get a policy regarding vehicle upfit policy? What would be your goal?
What
for that?
we have, we hope to have something early November.
Early November. Okay.
Working with the police.
It's police and fire.
And you're open to having a Board of Finance member on it? Okay.
Is the risk manager going to be involved in that?
He can be right now. Initially, we discussed just the police, fire, and purchasing, but yeah, if there's,
Well, one of the things I'd like to understand is what is the cost benefit or cost risk analysis of insuring these vehicles? I mean, if we have
I think
100,
that's one of the things he is looking at that.
because I don't know what it would cost to insure a fleet. I'm sure it's fairly
No, I think he is
expensive,
specifically, it's
and maybe
said.
that just outweighs the cost, but I just am a little bothered by, I don't know the circumstances of all these vehicles being totaled, but,
It could be an anomaly that year.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I know former Chief Calamaris indicated that he addressed some of these issues with individuals who were involved, and they were being disciplined, have been disciplined.
Okay, so when you do that policy, or the town creates that policy, it's gonna have upfits, whether they're necessary, uniform, and cost-effective, correct? Those are some of the things you'll cover?
As a general, yes.
Okay. In regards to the internal service fund, it scares me that these were able to go through. How do I know nothing else is going through the internal service fund that does not normally go through the internal service fund? And should we have Connie do an audit on the internal service fund and take it into the previous administration as well to see what costs, when expenses were paid out of there, and see whether they meet what the Board of Finance thinks goes through there? Because I don't want to find out 3 years from now that there were some other costs that we've never done before, but there was no money to do it, so we put other things through it. So
So
That's fine.
I don't think we need to go back to prior years. I do, and I don't know if everybody remembers this. So, I agree with you, Jim. One of the things I asked Tom to do, and I know he's not thrilled because he's obviously trying to get through this year end without Caitlin, and we're a little bit behind on the quarter. But I think our quarterly reviews should have internal service fund activity. We have always, for our budgets, every year had an analysis, including this past year, which is when we first heard about the cars going through. We've always had an analysis of internal service fund activity. I think it's in the public documents in the backup. And so I know, and I've been through that with Caitlin, you can see what goes through there, and it's been clean. It's health insurance claims, and it's deductibles for, property and casualty claim, things like that. General liability, I should say, and workers' comp. So I am fairly certain, just relying on the information that our board's been given prior to this past year, we haven't had that. And so I don't know if there's value to going back on an audit. I don't think there is. And I think we also, during the budget process, did get an analysis. Because we always get a projection of the internal service fund. So what Caitlin would give us, if you recall, she would give us the activity for the prior year, where she thought she was going to come out. She would, the stuff from Kerma would come in, and we'd have all of that. So I don't know that at the point we got that, which was March, I don't recall 5 cars being in there. So what I had asked Tom to do was to update through year end, so that when we get our quarterly update, which is really the year end update, we have not only the general fund, but we have the internal service fund. Because what we did notice during the budget process was that fund balance had been reduced to a fairly alarming degree. I mean, it went, 9 million to 2.5 million, something crazy. And so, and part of that was that we hadn't been funding it, but then all this other stuff was going through there. So I think if we can review that information during the quarter, and if everyone's satisfied with that, I mean, the stuff's out of Munis, so I'm not sure it needs an audit. We can just.
Can somebody look for, because Mr. Becker's car was purchased in October of '24, so that's the current budget year. From last July to the end of the year.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So what I'd like to see, so again, our quarterly review, which is next week, is really the fiscal year end, June 30th. And so what I had asked Tom was, could we get an analysis of that fund, along with a bunch of other things. I asked for interest income and, Tom. Yeah. So I asked for an update on the red light cameras and all that stuff. Some of the parking authority, some of the things that we spent a lot of time talking about, I hope to have an update on those during the quarter, and the internal service fund was one of them. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay. And we'll get an update at some point on this new pink voucher policy after the Board of Finance is presented with it a year later, to see what's gone through, to make sure. It's kind of like an audit follow-up, like we talked about doing. Okay. Connie, I saw your timeline process and whatever. Is that the normal process that you follow?
You're speaking about the history of the audit report?
Yeah, at the end, you have
At
like.
the end.
Yes,
I do that for tracking purposes, and also so people know the time involved in creating these reports. They go through various stages of drafts and reviews and meetings and discussions to come to a final audit report. So,
Okay.
Yeah, I've been putting that on the end of the reports.
Okay, so you had a meeting with a bunch of people, including the Natalia is the new first select person,
Yes.
and the police, fire, director of purchasing, Mr. Becker, chief fiscal officer, Harris, whatever. Were you asked to make changes to your report from your original report?
Every draft report does undergo changes as they are reviewed by upper administration. So yes, there were changes made to the report.
Were there changes that you made that you were uncomfortable with?
I think the changes made were probably accurate and representative of the final product of what we see.
Okay. And the original report that you did, it said was August 21st, 25? That's your
Yes,
final
it-
draft audit report. Okay. Can I get a copy of that?
Sure.
Okay.
Get all this.
Yeah, there's tons of them. Yeah, but I'll give you that, August 21 and so on.
I have no further questions. I appreciate it.
Thank you,
Thank you so much for,
Thank you. As I
thank you for the
said,
committee to allowing me to be here to ask all my questions. So I
Always,
I really appreciate it. And
anyone,
thank
if you
for-
have any questions, please feel
Thank
free
you
to
for getting this
email
to
me.
us quickly. I know sometimes these conversations are, no one likes being written up in an audit, but having them timely is really helpful.
And just to follow up about a vehicle policy, there's a couple of different ones going on in town, because then we've got just town employees who have vehicles and that are not in police and fire.
Manager would look at these electric vehicles and all that stuff.
Yes, yep.
Throughout town, you saw them the last.
So Ms. Axel has given you the full inventory of all vehicles, so
I appreciate this.
We got one more item here.
Yes, too.
Item number 3, to
Yeah.
hear, consider, and approve minutes of December 3rd, 2024,
Yeah, the only thing is, we got all fouled up with the meeting dates. Should we just approve them? That was my
We
only,
can approve the minutes and that the meeting dates.
okay.
All right, so that's what we're going to do. That's what's in.
All right,
the
so are you
calendar.
making a motion?
I make a motion.
I'll second the motion.
Sorry, what was the motion?
Motion to approve item
the
number
minutes.
3, the minutes. Mary, I don't know if you want to vote. Got to see you. All in favor, aye.
Aye, all right.
Can I ask you a question, though, about the minutes that I read something? You met with Mr. Centofanti, I saw on August 4th, and you asked him to review some policies and stuff, and you gave him recommendations on certain policies that you wanted to have him look at. Are you going to tell the Board of Finance what that is? And
Yeah, we
if so,
haven't-
can we take input from the Board of Finance on other policies that may not be listed
Yeah,
here?
well, that was the whole thing. So he presented Mr. Centofanti provided a proposed engagement letter, which was actually approved by the Board of Selectmen. I didn't see it, I was in Europe at the time. And when I saw it, I asked Mr. Harris if we could have a discussion, specifically because I wanted to talk about the scope. And I didn't, I wanted to make sure it was complete. Like, one of the glaring things on there that I thought, I didn't know if we were going to do it internally or we would ask Joe for it. But one of the glaring things I thought was missing was policies around our year-end closing process, for example. We lost our controller, like, does anybody know what to do? That kind of thing. So we haven't had, we had that discussion, but I haven't seen a revised proposal back.
So we were supposed to work, Joe and I, together and report back to you in November, was the
Okay.
what was left.
Yeah.
I am, in the meantime, drafting away.
Yeah, so I think some of this stuff can be done by the town, but the idea was, we budgeted some money for the Board of Finance specifically to address these types of issues, because we know we have a whole variety of issues here that we're trying to clean up. Policies and procedures are a recurring theme. But when I saw Joe's list, I was like, I really thought we needed to nail down and get policies and procedures documented around payroll, year-end close, and all the basic stuff, in addition to some of these more esoteric things. So, all right, adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second, okay. Aye.
Thank you,
All right, thanks, Mike.
Thank you.